Remember, if it's live, if it's not live, it's memory?
Yes.
Yeah. There we are, we're live. I'll just kick us off. Now you'll hear my voice and why I haven't been talking. Welcome back to the Vermont House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, January 27th, 2023. It's still waiting a little past 1 o'clock. We have a lot of documents. We're going to close this up today between now and as fast as we get it. Then we're out the door to some sunshine. And committee, before I forget, then staff, Monday, noon. Staff needs the morning to get things done and edited and copies. So there's no reason for us to come in early if we don't have something. So that's pretty consistent with where we're gonna go. So meet on Monday, hopefully, or which we can, over the other space.
Is there any reason we shouldn't just go over there?
You can joke over there now. There's only two things in there that, there's a filing cabinet that need to get unpacked and moved. But other than that, I think they're ready.
So you could move your things at least over to that room from here at the end of the day, so we don't have to come back here.
We don't have to come back here.
Next week.
And the only thing we don't have yet that these plugs, he doesn't have them up just yet. He's ordered them coming from some very overnight, he will retrieve them. Anyway, so that's the only thing that I think is missing. So here's what I think we're gonna do, we'll get through this, right? Is we're gonna go back through this in the one time bottom, right? We're gonna make some decisions, we're gonna vote on each one of these. And then then they will impact the pieces on the top. We'll do that. Then we'll go to Maria's language. There's these kinds of language that needs to come in, right? And then we'll take a final look through the web report to see if there's anything that's not closed that we close, and if there's anything on our language that's not closed that we need to close. Does that think we get through everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will have a bill to look at when we get in at noon,
Great.
and then we'll have a chance to all read it.
Yeah, we'll go off and sequester and have a cup of tea and read it somewhere in the building, come back and maybe by Monday or 3. We'll vote, we'll take a final vote on it so that we can, the goal is to get it to the clerk's office by 4:30. I was gonna come in early because I'd like to give us some space, but 4:30 goes to the clerk's office, then it gets introduced. So then from there, we prep to go to caucuses on Tuesday, caucus of the whole on Wednesday. I just scheduled with Aaron to make sure that we've got time for amendments on Thursday and Friday before we go to the floor, that we schedule in time for hear from people. Watch the calendars to see if anything pops up. Okay.
And check for email and our committee.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are we doing a caucus of the whole?
On
Maybe you
Wednesday.
said that.
Yes, Wednesday at noon.
So
We're not gonna do the individual
caucuses?
Yes, on Tuesday.
We're doing
vote.
Yes. Because I haven't, have you been? Yeah. I was pretty sure my caucus is gonna invite me. But, maybe not.
Maybe they have other things they want to talk about.
Yeah, questions with no action.
Okay, I just want to make sure before we get through the thick of it that I'm not yelling at everybody as they're walking out the door. All right, so let's go to the sheet. And those of you at home, this is the one that has from this morning, Lynn, that has the House Appropriations Committee FY23 IAA proposal. The green line at the top, the blue at the halfway mark. Maybe I can like pencil. No, I'll do the purple.
Yeah, I got it. I have it, thank you.
We're going, all right,
Start at line 20.
start at line 20. We heard from $2 million, coordinated care teams to continue wraparound services. We've got the information there. Representative Holcomb let us know that the other $2 million is to pay for what we're making. This is the $2 million to keep it going for the gap from July. And Human Services has recommended it. So this is Do you have any questions or should we just, okay, we got
I'm,
one, two.
I'm still confused. Is this net out as to 1.7 because we have to subtract the 300,000? I'm
That's a
sorry
good-
if I.
No, that's a good question. Sarah, can you answer that?
Negative 300,000 is a down in federal funds. The 2 million is all general funds, so it doesn't, the total nets together, but it's still just 2 million in general funds.
Why does the federal fund go down?
So part of the reason these funds are needed is the staff that are performing these services are normally charging their time to a federal program and drawing down those federal funds. Because they're doing a different activity than they normally do, they have to backfill those federal funds because they're not earning them for the work that they're doing, and that's why they need the general fund to backfill the lost federal revenue. And so it's just decreasing the federal appropriation because they won't spend it because they're going to have the general fund to
Because
backfill.
they're reassigned to a different task.
Correct.
And that's why they cannot use that
Correct.
time to draw down.
Does that make sense?
There's gotta be so many transfers. It's real
Yeah.
clear.
Real quick.
So the 300,000 isn't gonna show up in the budget anywhere? Or will it show up on the web report? At the
Yeah.
down?
Yeah, it will. So if you looked at, when you look at the direct proposal for this line item, it looks very similar to this. And that if you added up the components across the 3 departments that were impacted, you would see a collective $2 million general fund increase and then a decrease in the federal funds in the $300,000.
So the governor had recommended that also, and
Correct.
this is just an additional.
Yes,
you know,
we're
doing the same-
continuing it,
We're
yes.
continuing the program, so it's continuing the same thing. Yeah. So we're already doing it this way.
Yes.
Right.
And so the notes there, because typically we focus on changes to the general fund, but because these sections here involve federal and global commitment funds, I just wanted to be transparent so you could see the moves. But it does make it a little.
So
I'm not gonna dig the hole.
you're gonna need. Can we have a show of hands? Are we okay with this, including this in? Who doesn't want to do this? We're good. Okay, I didn't even count a little bit. All right, that's our first number.
Tracking anything? Am I supposed to be tracking?
No. This is just for your own. No. Sarah and Maria are tracking.
Would you like more rocks on your shoulders, Jim?
Wait a minute, can we do a roll call?
I'm not gonna do a roll call. Right now, we're just setting it up. All right, we can just do a joke after this one.
Yeah.
We'll be here at 8 o'clock. All right, line 21. This, rates, this is where we've got the 2 entities at 90, 1 entity says 100. And then Sarah gave us some more information this morning that if we do any direction, right, if we do the 90, it would cost 63 or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be a little bit more than what's on the sheet. For AHS.
60, yeah. So there's been some discussion around whether or not we should do 90 or 100. Yes, sir.
90. 2 out of 3
Recommendations we had.
I've heard,
I'm good
you're
with
good?
90.
Okay, all right. All in favor of 90, we'll go. All right,
Yep, okay.
done. Next item, 22. This is the FQHC rate increase to calendar year 2023 that healthcare has weighed in on.
Yes, and they said 92,000,
Oh,
I believe.
we have a new number.
Oh, God.
I think that we will reconcile internally.
Okay,
So the number is somewhere between 92 and 98.
Yes.
How's that? Or 99?
I think just for folks' awareness, this was the item where Bi-State was waiting for confirmation from DEVA
right.
on the impact. And so I think the difference has to do with that, waiting on that confirmation. I was told by my colleagues at AHS that that's still in process and that we can true it up later. It's in the ballpark, so.
So can we have a show of hands that we agree with it? It might be 92 or 99?
And you said healthcare was fine?
Yes.
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 Okay, check that off. Good. Next item, 23.
Medicaid.
Medicaid trans, oh, that's right, that number looks different. that came from healthcare. Are we good with that? Excellent. You need us to slow down, Sarah, you keeping up, Mike?
Just do Medicaid transportation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is the $12,000 for the extension to the substance use disorder specialist position. Recommended, okay, well, there we go, check that off. Judiciary, we already did this, we can check that off. Yeah, next one is, okay, 9:52. I went off, well, let me, are we okay with it?
Where are we now?
We're on line, I'm sorry, line 26.
The Rutland,
Okay.
The 9:52, I went, when we had break, I went out to go look because I got a good sense that the committee wanted to not lose this opportunity. But it was all about like, well, who structures this? And so language is being developed and I went to see institutions and corrections to make sure, blah, 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 blah. So I know that that's a technical term. Sarah, do you actually have anything yet? Or we want to say that we're okay with putting a fence on this until go ahead.
I don't have language, but I have some bullet points that I'm requesting language to be drafted from.
Okay. Would you share them with us so that we can be comfortable with, okay, 9:52?
Do you want me to share them the paper or just walk
No,
me
just
through?
tell us.
Just tell us.
Do you want me to come down there?
yeah, okay. Probably a good idea.
Down there and stay.
Keep it tight when you
I know, I like the big monitors, but, okay. So, this is where we want to include a proposal where we're reserving some of the funds. Last year, we did a similar construct in the big bill for the regional dispatch at public safety, where we actually appropriated the funds, but then we held some in reserve until they met certain parameters. So I think what we'll do is end up, if you approve this, we'll appropriate the 952, but we'll hold it in reserve to provide funding to the Howard Center for the purchase and repair of the property. The contingent that we're going to want back is for the Agency of Human Services in consultation with Buildings and General Services to convene a working group to assess the feasibility of the potential purpose and a long-term ownership plan for the property. We talked a little bit about the members of the working group would include DCF, DMH, BGS, the Howard Center, and others as appropriate. We'll ask for a report to come back by April 1st of 2023. The report will come to appropriations committees, Human Services, Senate Health and Welfare, and institutions, both the House and the Senate. That's the construct that we talked about.
So, are we comfortable with that? And we'll see that language in the final bill on Monday.
I'm good with that. I'm also trying to find out how much of the purchase price and how much is for repairs.
It was like 560
Okay,
something
maybe I
and
missed
3
it.
something.
369.
Okay, that was in that memo.
It was in, yeah.
Okay,
We did.
all right. We're good with that.
Yeah.
You need to, all right, next item on 27 is Dale, which is the Adult Days Operating Fund. This is what we've done for the last couple of years. I'm not having heartburn. Language is coming from Teresa as well. We're running what we've done in the past 2 years by Teresa to make sure that that's okay. And if you were in favor of that, raise your hand.
Critical.
I'm gonna be hanging out there in a few years. You're gonna be hanging there?
And are we contributing to the proximity of that experience?
Do you have a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Ah.
Just let me-
Wants a treadmill in there, too.
Sorry, I'm sure every one of us loves our adult days in our communities. critical. Don't let the fact that we're laughing not an indicator that we're not serious. All right, next item, 28, is the $50,000 for Recovery House, Serenity House, Justice Reinvestment. We got this at the public hearing. And I don't know.
I mean, this is now my way, and I'd love to support it, but the committee didn't weigh in on it. We had one person make a request. I don't know what it's for. I talked to someone else in the community, and they thought they were doing okay. I don't know, that's third-hand information, so.
We're okay, you're okay.
I'm
to let
okay
it
with
go.
not doing it right now. I mean,
Okay.
it's just, it may be valuable, it may be needed, but
And there's more stops.
there's more stops, you're right.
Right, well, we don't
Right,
have a representation.
Well, could you-
Yeah, the request is through Justice Reinvestment too, and we already have a process in place where corrections and institutions and House Judiciary are going to look at the if you remember the $1.3 million that's still available out of the 1.9
Yes.
from the FY '22 out-of-state bed savings.
Yes.
So I would suggest that this be brought up in that conversation.
Okay, great. If you're listening, I hope you're paying attention. All right, so we're gonna put an X on that one, right? Next one, line 29. Vermont Housing Conservation Board, $50 million. Big number, big project, 108 down payment on the big process. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think that what we've heard from providers all across the state is that there are no options. There is no capacity right now. So I would heartily recommend that we do this because I think the need is really clear and we all know that the motels are not a long-term solution.
Oh, I wanted to echo the comments from Representative Bloomley. As you know, I'm the one who also mentioned the value of having additional funds made available to dedicate for water, wastewater infrastructure to support housing development needs in smaller communities that don't have that infrastructure. I think perhaps that might be something we could take up in the next year's budget. The demand is certainly greater than the available supply of housing at this stage. And we do know that there's already projects in the pipeline. So I would support this.
Thank you.
I don't know what fiscal '24 is going to look like, but in the worst case, even if this was dollar for dollar, even if it meant 50 million now, dollar for dollar, we would be subtracted from the '24 budget, which I don't think would be the case. But even if it did, I would vote for it because I just think we need to jumpstart it. There's projects in the pipeline ready to go.
That was my comfort level.
Yeah, no. What did we put in for next, what did the governor propose in next year's budget?
Well, I don't know if he went above, I think he did go above, which will be taken into consideration of the property tax transfer amount. This is a one-time piece. We know, or we heard, from the testimony that this line item is in need of 185 million
Over 2 years.
over 2 years. I don't think we're ready to do that. I think we're ready to make the commitment that we heard that 50 million will do signal to the developers that they don't get stalled before July. And then in the big bill, I think we'll do the regular transfer and then we're gonna consider more, as much as we can, more above that.
Okay, but are we taking from for example, the VHIP program, you know?
No, we're not.
No, totally separate.
Not in the BAA, I'm talking about, are we spending next year's money in that area?
There's a significant amount of one-time money that we have that I don't even think we're getting close to touching it yet. But if you want to think about it in some terms, there'll be things in the '24 budget that we don't.
I don't think there's an intent to cut another program. We need housing all over the place and VHIP's one of the places that we.
No disagreement.
Yeah.
No disagreement. I'm just trying to, what do we spend? Listen, I support housing, whether you do it in February, or whether you do it in June or whatever, the next budget cycle. But if we spend it here, are we now making decisions? Because now, even though we have this extraordinary one-time funds that is allocated, what are we actually taking it from? Are we taking it from the reserve requirement for state share of federal infrastructure grants?
Could be.
But, I mean, that's what's helpful to me to understand what we're trading
So
off.
there's so many places where there is that we wouldn't even, there's 150 million totally unspent. That even unallocated,
But that's the reserve.
no,
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 If
we
there's
would never
no
touch
money-
the reserve. You
No,
would
no,
have
no,
to drag
the reserve for state share on future.
the
budgets.
governor's proposed 150 million.
He did, yeah, he jumped that to the bottom line.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, you're right. What we do impacts what we'll be able to do in the next budget as well, to a certain extent.
But we don't know what that is.
We don't know what we're gonna decide or what the others will decide.
I know that. All I'm saying, this isn't a small number, this is
No,
a big
It's a
number.
big number.
And big numbers have more of an impact on the investments we want to make in next year's budget. And it's one thing to make those decisions at the same time, and I realize we can't, but we have to understand, we're not printing new money. We are borrowing from next year's one-time budget requirement.
If we consider the evil, yeah, no, yeah, go ahead.
We have a lot of one-time money still for this year.
But that's all carried forward to next year's budget.
If we don't spend it this year, it can be carried forward to next year's budget.
Okay, we're talking about,
Different places,
Yes.
okay,
Right,
okay.
because we make assumptions that we're gonna agree with, and I know,
okay.
I look at that big picture.
We can go ahead and pencil this in.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm on board yet.
Okay.
Just.
Well, you might want to make it smaller in the next budget than, you know, but this is a good indicator to get these guys, keep them going. All right, are we ready to say good?
You're ready to vote on that.
If you're,
My job is to hold things up. Kidding, I'm kidding.
Everybody has a role to play.
I want to be here till 7 o'clock.
I think that if the concern is specifically that by taking 50 million, if we take the 50 million out of, if we were to take it dollar for dollar out of the pot that's available for housing in the fiscal 24 budget, would we have taken not just money that's available for affordable housing, but would we have taken so much that it is impacting the VHIP program? And I think the answer is no. I think there's enough money in housing available so that we may be taking money away from affordable housing, let's say VHC, that VHCB builds, but I don't think it would reduce the VHIP amount that the governor is proposing for VHIP in his budget.
Right.
That's my impression. I'm not sure.
But if this 50 million isn't in the BAA, it's additional, it's money they have proposed to put in other buckets in next
Right.
year's budget.
Correct.
And that's what I don't know, what are we taking away from? There may be some things on there that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
we-
right. We would normally never see 24 before we vote on this, which is really handy, but at the same time, I've tried to not look at it. I looked at a couple of lines on it, but I just stayed away from it, so I'm operating on this path, and like you tell pages are here. We have 1, 2, and then we'll,
I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. This, we can spend our time pulling drowning people out of the river or keeping them from falling in the river in the first place. And I'm struggling to not think of an investment in housing as something that will grow our income tax base in the future, that will reduce the demands for social services. I mean, so much of the bulging GA line item right now is because there literally are not enough houses for people to live in. So I would like to think of this not as taking away, but maybe creating capability in the future. I just really strongly support it because it does, even people who don't agree with some of the asks are saying we have a housing crisis. That's why we're having all of these challenges in every sector right now. We have a housing problem, no workforce problem. We can't, we're using hotels because there literally aren't places to put people right now.
Oh, Rep. Dickinson and then Representative.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious. First of all, has anybody ever added up what we spend with VHCB in any past 5 years or something, number one? And number two, and we're talking about the emergency housing and the motels and hotels and the things that we've put a lot of money into. Does this have an impact on that? Are these the people that they put into these units, or is there a direct relationship or no relationship at all?
I would say, do you understand? I would say, correct me people who are deep into this deeper, there is a relationship because if you're in the hotel or you're stuck in there, or not stuck in there, but in that, and you have a voucher, you can't go anywhere unless there's housing that's built. So the faster we get these guys going, the sooner we can get the people out of here and into something that creates less here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess the first question is does anywhere in, well, JFO might have a number of what they've been putting into this for years, several years, we get a perspective of, and if we've been putting 50 million, 100 million, 250 million, I mean, does this solve, I mean, we keep putting all this money into it, does it really make a dent in the housing issue, is I guess the question I have. You know, what's the return on the investment? Are we solving our problem?
Yep, we got that. I mean, we know that.
We know some of that, yes.
But I'm gonna go to, that's a bigger conversation, and especially when they come in with their budget. So they'll come in and present their budget for 24 with all the data.
Okay.
Representative Harris.
Just two quick points. One is that signaling to the development community is critical because this is also an economic investment into our local economies as well to help build and supply that housing. But, I personally would prefer to see that number higher. Again, thinking about water and wastewater for villages. Small villages won't be getting this money. This money will go typically where we already have water, wastewater, where we already have vacant buildings, where we already have buildings to be repurposed. And I would rather see this being increased to an additional 15 million to have that 15 million supporting water, wastewater to, again, same sort of thing, signaling for the housing needs in our more rural communities.
I don't disagree with you, but we need to build housing like now. So where's the places where we can do it and do it faster would be places that have those already. And not that we're discriminating, but there's other.
There's money in the IIJA infrastructure to do more of that. There's specific money in that.
Which are loan, typically loan related. Financing up to 50%. So,
but that's why they pick those places because they don't, that infrastructure belongs there.
And I bet that will be addressed by committees in the 24 budget.
Okay, so VHCB likes to take 10% of their money and put it into conservation programs, buying land and stuff. Are we putting any guidelines that this is only for housing?
This is like the one time for housing. Not a part of their base and all the other kinds of appropriations they
So
have.
10% of that won't go over, get piped off into
We can say that.
conservation. If we can say that, that would help.
Okay. Is that, I should check with Sarah and Maria. The normal contribution to them, the 100% does go. But if we say this is for housing, none of it's going to conservation.
That's right. Yeah, we generally, when we do these additional appropriations, we put language in that specifies that it goes to housing.
Okay, we ready?
Any other questions for people to do that?
Well, I just can direct people to general housing. I remember that Gus Seelig did a presentation to general housing, and in it they say that the state investment over the last 2 years, FY22 and 23, the state investment's been $56.6 million. Out of that, 1,218 homes and apartments were created. Now, it also goes into what went into farmland and acreage that's conserved. So it can be found on that web page. I believe that the information, I'd have to go back to the presentation that they gave to us in joint assembly last December. I think that there's they have even more figures about what they have invested in over the last several years, and with pandemic money and throughout federal money.
Right. Yeah, because they have like base budget and then we've been like the tsunami of other.
Yeah, there was also a letter that went into our committee page yesterday from Gus.
Yeah.
The board was meeting. And one thing they said is the pipeline for the next 6 months includes at least 825 new units, requiring 103 million of VHCV support.
Can I hold that for a minute? Yeah.
And it goes from there, but that's, so they've got, the work is there.
So, our little friends, looking at last year's budget in the G section, that for one-time housing and homelessness investments was 30 million.
And it said appropriated to provide affordable mixed income rental housing and home ownership units, improvements to manufactured homes and communities, recovery residences, and if determined eligible, housing available to farm workers and refugees. That's right, we put some of that.
We will also use the funds for shelter and permanent homes for their but that was the 30 million.
And that's language that.
Yeah, right, so we have language that specifies.
So that would be my intent, is that we continue and we give them 50 to start with until we get to 24, and then Jim will do some math and decide what we're.
It's more than we're allocating next year, the 50 million, what the governor allocated, I should say. So.
Oh, I think so.
We spent that, now we have to take it from somewhere else. That's all, I just want to make a point.
No, you're right.
We're not making these things in a vacuum.
No.
That's right. Yes,
And that's
exactly right.
All right, I got my tea.
You have your tea, I got my tea. Okay, we have a hand of putting 50 million in the housing. All right, thank you. Yeah, good. Next item, 30. Yeah, this is the Paul Dragon piece. I'm gonna treat this the same way as we did line 28 at this point. That was a request that came in directly to us that did not go through, did not get. So I'm gonna make a recommendation. You don't support this at this moment. If you're listening, it doesn't mean we did not have it on a priority from any of the committees. And Human Services may look at it and decide to do it, and they may do it in the big bill. So I'm gonna X this for now, with your permission. Okay, I see a lot of thumbs up. Okay, I shouldn't vote two, just one. All right, next item is 31, which is the Lund. Oh, so the one. Is that a vote or a question?
No, I'm sorry. It was vote. Okay.
Are we ready to vote on that? Are we good?
Yeah.
All right, yay. Check that off. All right, this one might be a little more contentious. Number 32. 32 is the Human Services construct for priority populations on stuff.
So the 13 million is for the three populations, people who are 60 and older, people with disabilities, and families with children under the age of 18. Those are the three categories that this covers.
Right.
You want a point of clarification before you take comment?
Well, Rep. Harrison has a hand up.
Well, Representative Holcomb and I met with representative of DCF. Meeting started, we sorry we're late, we try not to let it happen again. Okay, so no secret, I'm just tired of this hotel program. We're the only state in the country that has such an expanded program. There is no criteria. I appreciate Human Services for trying to put some guardrails on it. It turns out that there are still others in the population that will be able to access this. And so The number you got here came from DCF. They do not support this, but this is what they came to from DCF, so they didn't calculate it.
Right.
So, Health and Human Services lowered the age group in their memo from 65 to 60. And the old criteria was 65. I've asked DCF to try to come up with a better estimate if we went to 65 instead of 60. That 60 was probably easier, I think, was easier to calculate for.
We don't calculate it.
At 60, yeah, so that's what they gave them, but I mean, that, to me, that's an expanding criteria if the criteria used to be 65, so. Additionally, we asked them for they have some trouble with the language that was put in by, so even what they intended doesn't necessarily work. So they are trying to draft up some clarification language based on what Human Services gave. Hopefully we'll get it later today. They're working on it. We don't have it. She couldn't guarantee that it would get done today, but they're working on it.
What's the language about?
One specific example, so referring to disabilities, they want us to use a descendant of the three others,
SSDI, they're on that?
They don't know how to identify.
DCF, okay.
They recommend using those designations, because those are the designations that we use currently to identify people with disabilities.
That might be a friendly amendment from the Human Services Committee. You know what it is?
No, I know what you're saying, yeah, that part I think we can get through. I've also asked, and I think you were in agreement, to come back with recommendations. They talked about using the council to end homelessness. They're going to give us some language on that, to convene with stakeholders. I know we tried this a couple years ago and it worked until it didn't work. So that we're not starting July 1 with nothing. I mean, or we're starting July 1 with a continuation of same old, same old. So we've asked for that. I am personally interested in at least changing that eligibility to 65 instead of 60. She's supposed to get back to us this afternoon with the reduction in that 13.4 million. It won't be a lot. She, off the top of her head, she said that might be 100 plus families less or rooms less.
So there were 273 households that had 60 or older, according to what Lisa told us when she came in.
Okay, I don't know. So, and this was, not
back at the
information, so it may not be that many. Currently, there's about 1,800 units right now. They believe the HHS only, the Human Services Amendment only reduces it to 1,400.
Yeah, with 1,100 of those being in the target group.
Yeah, because you still have others, and I don't ask you to explain who gets in, who doesn't get in, but
That's the whole, is that the
so
whole?
it could lower it by another 100, but maybe that's optimistic. So I could go along with some kind of construct like that, but we don't have it yet.
We don't have it yet.
It may save us $1 million from that ask, but I'm not ready.
Yeah, we don't know the other costs. Yeah, am I gonna tell you that I'm 65 or if I'm 62?
So if they have any age group, they have to have some verification.
I hear you.
Yeah. So the number that we were given was a total of 978 households would qualify under the construct that was presented by Teresa Wood from Human Services.
And that came from GCF, at least. They may not support it, but they did provide good numbers.
So
our numbers aren't jiving.
That's what I'm confused about.
And I will second, I mean, it is true that we were just told it was about 1,100.
that this would qualify for under the current
three
construct.
categories for those three groups. I did just check it.
Yeah.
You are correct. So and they're both effective numbers that I got from CCS, so I'm not sure
How that's
how
happened.
that's aligned.
Right.
Yeah.
I know he splits a lot of hairs, but we just want to house people so they're not out there.
And, can I just say,
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim, I am glad that you said you're sick of this emergency housing. I am too. And we've been asking for a plan for several years, and we have not gotten a plan, and this is where we find ourselves. And it's extraordinarily frustrating, and I would like to get this solved. We thought we had it close to solved, and then it didn't. But we're gonna keep doing this year after year until we get a plan. And a plan to spend the money is not the same thing as a plan to solve the problem. It's kind of solve
And
the
that's
problem.
why I'm asking for language to force the issue once again.
Yeah.
We did it a couple years ago. I
Yes.
remember Representative Jessup being involved in
Yeah.
meetings and
Yeah.
they thought they had someone and then so some of the stakeholders walked away from it. So it may happen again, but I think it's too important. It's
Yeah.
worth a try. And I'm willing to bite my tongue and continue this for a little longer if we can get some resolution. But they're working on language right now.
I would be in favor. It doesn't sound like it's not gonna stop, and it actually sounds like it's a good thing to go forward if they can get the plan
Yeah,
together.
but I also want to change the age to 65, and I'm trying to find out,
I don't want to do that.
All right.
but that's what it was.
So what I'd like to do is see if Maria or Sarah can find the language that we had in the budget like 2 years ago that Kimberly Jessup put together to have that working group try to come up with a plan for GA housing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
If that could be found, so we could all take a look at it, at least that would maybe be something we have a context. 'Cause we gotta solve this.
Right. We're on a
We're all
path.
in agreement.
Could be a full amendment, could be a friendly amendment for human services if they want to. Could be done in the Senate. You know, or we could.
All of that.
Those are it. But doesn't make it so.
I have to tell you, this is a huge issue in our area, and I can't go forward.
With 62-year-olds.
You can go forward, I can't go forward
Yeah.
without some minor changes in some work to go forward on a plan that hopefully will result.
I think I'm good with a plan to go forward. I don't think I want to cut anybody off right now because it's just actually the process of trying to figure out how old somebody is probably a waste of. I mean, it's not that it's a waste of money, but the resources to try to figure that out seems.
Well, they're gonna have to age verify it anyhow if they're reducing criteria at all, which they are with the 6.
Yeah. But I'm not, you know.
Okay, no, we'll.
But I'm interested in the plan. That's. We're
I think we need a plan, and I hope you can add your weight to after we get it done.
Yeah,
I am trying to do that, but
and we know that when you put your mind to it, sir.
I don't like any of this. I know we have a-
Nobody
We hear you
has.
loud and clear.
We appreciate your stretching, Jen.
I do, I really appreciate it.
Carrie's got her hand up and Carrie and Tristan.
I just want to just mention a face. I have a constituent who lives in his car on someone else's parking lot paying rent to be able to sleep in his car. And I just think the alternative, if we don't, this is only a continuation of a bridge to the end of June. And I agree, getting a plan and getting a long-term solution is absolutely critical. But I think this is about making sure at least we have a roof over the house of people that need it.
Yeah.
You good?
Start that.
I'm ready.
You're ready, sir. Go ahead.
So I said I was noodling earlier and
Thank you.
and so I guess Jim and I have irreconcilable ideas on this one. And so I just want to state that up front.
Good thing on the opposite.
I can't even kick them.
Yeah, and and I see the situation that we're in similar ways and in slightly different ways too. And I think maybe our communities do as well. And we're reflecting some of what we see In my community right now, we're having a lot of community conversations about the fact that even with 200 plus spaces available for people who are experiencing homelessness, we still have people who are out on the streets every night because we're so far, our housing is so far so unavailable as to make that completely insurmountable. And we have, I believe Digger published this, one of the highest crime rates in the state, if not the highest crime rate in the state per capita right now. I don't see how ending this program and its current construct on April 1 improves that situation. And I would actually recommend and request that we go to the full 21 that was referenced by the Human Services Committee as the original ask, and that we extend the current eligibility. As I understand it, that's essentially what I'm proposing we do. And if we, as a committee, decide that this is the direction that we want to go, I know we can get the Human Services Committee to help us sort of shape exactly what that criteria looks at. But I think that it involves essentially eliminating the weather, the sort of the weather qualifications until the end of the fiscal year. I am 100% on board with putting together the work group again. I think that this is step one in a process where I think we're grappling with the impending cliff of what happens if this, albeit very necessary program, but also very complex program in terms of its impacts, is just upended. And so I proposed $7.5 million be fenced off in addition to this 13 board request. So we work on the language
for development, not, you're okay with the 13?
I'm saying add 7.5 or, round it up to 20, to whatever the exact number is to get it to 21 million.
Or we can put 7.5.
Or we can fence it, or we can fence it off. But my intention.
Structurally better.
And Jim, I think the numbers that you were just saying, I think speak to this, that the Human Services proposal maybe gets 1,100 or 1,200. You're offering a counter to go down a little bit, and I'm looking at the 300 or so that are left. And I'm saying that I consider the social harm of, them having nothing to be worse than the social harm of keeping them in a program we don't like. And recommend that we continue that funding stream until we can figure something else out.
Representative Hall?
Question. What I'm hearing from both of you is we don't like the program as it is, that we want to get out of the situation and that there's no plan and we want a plan. Can you explain how we can force a plan, the administration to produce a plan?
So there is a plan, but the plan involves getting rid of cold weather exemptions for certain classes of people. So for instance, I had one person I know who's been chronically homeless, who I used to teach, he lost his motel voucher and was camping out in the streets. And he said, I don't know what happened. He was confused. He's got limited cognitive grasp on things. And he's somebody who's struggling with substance use disorder and totally at loss. That's what's going to happen is individuals who don't have families or who are not currently, I believe, if DCF has their children and they're single, those are the people who are going to lose access to this source of housing. But our shelter system is already at max, at least in my area.
I mean a plan to handle this entire population.
But that is not the plan is to go back to the pre-COVID days.
But the plan you want, and I think the plan you want is ultimately a plan to deal with the population that we're currently putting.
And I think that's the study group.
And that we're not paying the hotel rate.
Right.
But that's the work group and our next steps as a policy body working with the administration to say, we haven't, if we don't do what I've suggested, I believe we are then accepting that we are not going to try to house everybody. That we're accepting that as the starting position. And I would like to start with and continue with the position. We're going to do everything that we can to house everybody. And we're gonna try to pivot away from the motel program as the way that we do that. But what is the transitional step? And that has to be worked out.
When you say putting a fence around the 7.5, what does that mean? What kind of fence would it be?
It's basically saying we have the intent to spend this money. And then for this group, and then we'll work on policy language either before it leaves our body or as it moves through, if it comes back, when it comes back to us in conference, if it's in the Senate version or not, we can propose language because it was in ours. And so it will be a part of our negotiation for how this bill goes, and the governor's team will be involved as well, so that at that point, typically, to state their case. And they can also obviously state their case to the Senate. And so we're in a rough situation, and I think that there's good intention everywhere. As I really respect that Jim's community has given a lot of feedback to him, for instance, on the motel program. And I'm getting different feedback, and so my recommendation comes from a different perspective.
I just want to interrupt for a second and say that Maria has sent us the language, just so we have that.
For the work group.
From the budget a couple years ago. It's section E 321.2. There's some stuff on either side of it, but that is the section to read A, B, and C.
What is it?
Maria sent it. I don't know which budget it is, so it's an attachment.
It's the 22 budget.
It's in the 22 budget.
Yeah.
And this is what they put out there for a plan?
What they put out there for the language
For the work group.
to solve it. So it's 321.2 emergency housing work group is what it's labeled, and there's sections A, B, and C. It came
Oh, I
from
see.
Maria.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, it came from Aaron.
From Aaron.
Sorry, Maria gave it to Aaron. It still came from Maria. Got it.
And I would be fine for my recommendation to be to do what I suggested and add the work group language as a counter offer to Jim's plan, which is different plus.
My initial offer was to get rid of it.
I know. I know we're on very different sides here.
So we have, people seem to agree on a work group regardless of where we end up with
Yeah.
the money. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And then Jim wanted to reduce the money and Tristan wants to increase the money. That's where we are, I think.
And Tim doesn't have it, yeah.
Yeah, I was really struck by what you said yesterday about, if we are voting for this, then we are voting specifically to choose who will sleep, who has a roof over their heads and who is likely not to. And I feel that we all bear responsibility for the crisis that is right now, that we have had several years to come up with an alternative. And it's not, and I think everybody in the system wants to make it work. And yet I think a lot of people have been stretched to the limit, that if Rita Markley is answering the phones at COTS because she doesn't have enough staff, then, it's no wonder why advocates probably thinking that, 21 million is a big number. Let's go for what we can. So to that end, we will suggest these populations. I guess, having been an advocate, I was very realistic about what I came into the legislature with in my back pocket. And at any rate, I really support what you're saying, Tristan, because I think the need is there, and I think it's really incumbent upon us all to acknowledge this is not where we want to be this time next year, and make it possible not to be.
I'm going to say one thing.
Okay.
I'm going to shut up.
That's okay. And then Rep. Brennan has-
Part of
A big problem today, probably bigger than we realize, is there is no criteria. And you can move into Vermont in one day and
get a hotel voucher.
We're the only state that has that, and you can't discriminate between in-state and out-of-state because of some past Supreme Court rulings. So, Brattleboro is gonna be hit because you're right on the border. Rutland is very close to New York on the western side of the state. So it's hard. And right now, we're attracting, unfortunately, some of this is not the housing shortages. We've got, I'll say it, we have drug dealers coming in and using these as bases of operation. We've had a couple shootings and killings in Rutland.
Hence the
at
wraparound
motels.
services are real important.
So, whatever, it's just, I'm trying to do what I can to say, okay, I'm not there yet.
I don't think I realized that about the one day. Thank you for.
Yeah,
bringing
it's
that
a
up.
residency.
You could be 25 years old, move into Vermont and sign up to get a hotel voucher right now.
And hundreds of the people that in the current proposal would lose that housing are people who've been in the community for years already. And some of them aren't. This is the challenge. It's this asymmetric problem of the people who are the ones, the bad actors, who are not necessarily vulnerable, but able to exploit. Do we throw out the people who through no fault of their own are struggling in order to solve that problem? And that's, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's all really helpful. Representative Bennett.
So thank you. So I'm not in favor of this either, and I would vote no, but I owe you an explanation, I think. And Jim, Representative Harrison picked up right where I was about ready to start about the moving in one day. And I think if one thing here, and I've got some stats from my local town manager, police chief that I'm throwing at you. But if we think that people the word isn't getting out that this program's available and it's so easy, we'd be naive not to think people are coming here just for that purpose. We are taking care of our own too, and that's great, but I think the program does have flaws. But in my town, we have 3 hotels that have, basically they're all housing the homeless. And just a few numbers from my police chief, my town manager, the voucher program, these are calls at 2 of the hotels, just 2. For rescue last year, prior to voucher system was 119 a year. It's 623 now. Okay, police 133 prior, 647. That's a 386% increase. So fires, a 200% increase. So they have wraparound services, but this is at a cost to Colchester taxpayers who elected me at an additional $420,000. This taxpayer money for these services, an extra police officer, which we can't, like everybody else, can't find police officers. So that's where I'm coming from. Wonder why I don't raise my hand on this one.
Sure, I feel the same way. Our police
In Virgins, because we have Job Corps.
Yep.
That's a federal place, and so we're like, listen, we have all, this percentage of our cost, same thing. It's a tough place to
This
be.
speaks to why we need to have a different plan.
Yeah, I'm all over that.
Yeah,
I'm with you there.
yeah. I think we definitely have a lot of common ground. It's just a matter of how we get from here to there.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna have, this one's gonna be a divide. So I'm thinking that we should take a vote on the 13, and then take a vote on fencing your 7.5 with some language. And then we'll bring, the idea, the concept, the intent around the plan, right?
The work group.
Did you want to take a vote on Jim's language change in between
From
before
60
mine?
to 6.
So there's the 13, or if we affirm the 13, Jim, does that feel like
I think that if we vote on those 2,
that's enough?
that's enough.
We might have a friendly amendment from Human Services on some other changes or a work plan. Does that make sense? we're not gonna develop.
I mean, if the idea of the idea of the 21 fails, then we get to what's in the 13.
I think Diane's thinking about the other way, but it's all good.
Yeah, because you were thinking about fencing right now.
Yeah.
So
I don't wanna
maybe we could start with
Fence the
the.
13. I don't want to fence the 13.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the seminar. What if can we start with a work plan? Does everybody agree that we should
I
have
haven't
language
seen
for
it.
a work plan? But does everybody agree with that concept?
The concept,
We should have language
yes.
for the work plan.
Yeah.
Let's start
And
in
then
agreement.
maybe it'll come in as an amendment, some of it'll come in and something, yes. Definitely a work plan, which
Okay.
we've done before. So that's good.
Can I ask one question? Did anyone take testimony or did Human Services describe why it went from 65 to 60?
Literally because that was the number they had available to present.
That's what they had data
That they had to
on.
give a number, they
Have
already
data.
done the analysis internally because they were internally trying to work
Maybe
through some of
they
these savings.
break it in 10-year increments, and that's what they
And
have.
that's what they had available, was 60 or 70. This is what they had data.
Right. It's not like if they had the broke up by 65, for all we know, they might have said 65, but they didn't.
So,
All right, so we're
can
good.
I ask another question about that to Jim? Was it your understanding they could get you the number for 65 or was that
It's
really
gonna
too
be-
difficult to get?
It's gonna be an estimate. I texted her again to see if she can get us something, and I mean, all of this is estimates. I mean, that's why we have a
Right, that's why we have a VA.
So true. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're good on the work group. We'll find out if somebody has any data on that. So shall we lock in a vote on the 13 with no fence? Are we ready with that? So I know that the 13 million.
Yeah.
With the group will, which
Okay.
if I can predict, remember Janice Beasley? I can predict what she's gonna vote effectively. I would like to lock in the 13 and then we'll work on the
It's the
7.
13, that's 60.
Yeah.
That's the 13, that's 60.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Are we good with that? Who's in favor of the 13? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we're good with that.
And it sounds like if we had gone to 65, we might have had at least one more vote. Just so we know.
Okay.
So we acknowledge that.
All right,
And I wonder if
But that would have changed the money a
a
little bit.
bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand that.
and I wonder if the plan could help put a finer point on that question of being able to look at the incremental.
Well, except we want the plan to eliminate the program.
All of them. Not
We're thinking bigger than that.
Well, it's never gonna eliminate all of them. You're
Right.
still gonna have 20 below nights and
Right.
other issues that you wanna take care of, so.
I do like the fact in Vermont, we do this, that we're, it's one of the, I know, it's, we've got a question and then we'll
We voted on the work group, but we didn't vote on this language.
No,
So, okay,
we voted on the concept of a work group.
concept of
And that's an
workshop.
example of language.
Yes, okay.
That
work, I think.
that either it'll come back it will come back as an amendment maybe.
So now my
Talk
seven-
about your 7.5.
So now so I'll restate, I recommend that we add 7.5 million to try to actually eliminate this differentiation of the different populations. And I'm happy to work to get language for Monday if we agree to the 7.5 million to sort of
Yeah.
make it clear, and that obviously would include the work group because I think that that's essential as well. But that's the fence, I guess.
That's the fence until it's,
And so, just help me understand, we're putting a fence around it until what? What would be the
Well-
contingency that we would like? So maybe you can answer, then Lynn can go.
Well, so, I guess the simplest way to say it is I'm recommending we add the 7.5 million, which I think is the estimate to continue the current program as it currently is structured for 3 more months. I need to see if that is in fact the right language, so I don't know. So I'm sort of saying, if we agree in principle that that's our intent to add these 7.5 million in order to fund it for the final quarter, without the, all of the other components that would currently end of March.
Hi, Dick.
Then I'm willing to try to then go to Human Services
Dogs, cats.
and ask them for language that will accomplish that correctly.
So,
Hi. I just, I think that I agree with Jim. Obviously, we do have homeless problems. We do have, I think we've had general assistance previous to the pandemic
yes.
that did, I don't know how many people there were, but there certainly were people there and they're going to continue to be there. I'm just curious if we've got, and I think this is probably true, we've got people moving here because we're the only state in the union that does it, and we get people with no residency requirements who get off the train in Rutland or wherever they get from, and they come here and move in and selling drugs or just living here because they can. That takes money away from the Vermonters who are living in their cars and living under the bridge and who really are residents. And, I'm not sure that's fair either. So I think that, we have to think about the fact that this money is taking money from Vermonters that we would probably want to work with. And I think we'd like to help find a solution for who actually live here. So that's my observation.
Thank you, Lynn. Back to
So-
figuring out how do we do that.
How we do. So I think what I'm proposing is essentially that we continue the current program through the end of the fiscal year by adding $7.5 million to the Human Services appropriation and work with Human Services to amend their language if they consider this to be a friendly amendment, to make that technically accurate. And that we, in the meantime, also constitute the work group and look to how we can get ourselves out of this program. And from my perspective, to do so without choosing 300 or 400 of the folks that are in it to be on the street.
So just straight up, we'll put it in, and you're gonna work with Human Services to bring language.
So it really isn't a fact.
It's not really a fence.
It's not really a
No,
fence.
it's not.
Right, sorry.
So let's just eliminate the fence, and are we good with adding another 7.5?
Right.
Or whatever the final number is. But right now, we're gonna go with 7.5. Because they came in on Friday, or not, they didn't come in on Friday, but when we got the number, it was like going from 13 to 21.
Yeah.
So as Representative Harrison has so eloquently put, everything we do is kind of a good estimate. We take a pretty good shot at the dartboard. So 7.5 million should get us to the end. Are we good with that? Are we, okay, let's add it. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there. So let's add it in.
Question and a comment. I mean, I said yes, but has this been run by informally?
Yeah.
HH? Okay. And the only comment is, I feel, first of all, I'm very sympathetic with the objections that have been.
Me too.
And, I mean, obviously. I would really hope that when this comes back, that when we deal with the fiscal 24 budget, we have an idea, if we spend dollars on this, what aren't we doing? In other words, God forbid, but I mean, if it came to it, I might really think hard about whether I wanted to spend dollars for the complete fiscal 24 if Gus Seelig was telling us, well, with that money, I could have built so many units. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know the kind of trade-off. I'm supporting this now through the end of the year, but I would really hope that we're in a better position as we look at.
You're gonna get sharper.
Now, what aren't we doing, because of this?
Go ahead.
That's okay, yeah.
Just two thoughts. The fastest way to bring down the motel voucher expenditures is to come up with a short, medium, and long-term plan.
So to me, this is an investment in eliminating this dependency on a program we all agree is terrible. And we haven't been able to get leverage on that issue. We know the way we reduce the hotel program is we get a medium-term and long-term plan for getting people out of hotels. The second thing I just have to say, I don't know what people's mortgage deductions are, but we should be mindful that we're parsing how much to spend on the people who have the absolute least in the state. And we are all heavily subsidizing homeownership. So I just think we need to be really thoughtful about this. And I personally know people who, through no fault of their own, ended up in very precarious situations like some of the ones described here. It was like getting hit by lightning, and they don't have a house that they can sell or big assets accumulated. And so what we're really talking about is we need a plan to give people a chance to get a foot back in the economy and in our communities. I'm hoping that this will push for that.
I mean, frankly, I see this as this committee, affirming we need a little bit more time as an administration and as a legislature, to see what we can do. And that it extends the point at which the cliff happens by 3 months. And that's it. It's not a longer term commitment to this program. It's currently just simply saying we need, with 3 more months to give those folks safety for 3 more months. Can we figure out
3 months with this? I know
Can
it's
we
hard,
figure
but
out
it's
something
3
better?
months.
And I hope we can.
And if we get a solution, we don't need it.
I don't want to see this. Yeah,
I mean, we are gonna face the choice
again,
in about a month
yes.
as to whether what we've come up with for July 1 forward is acceptable. But right now, the decision is, should we extend it through the end of the year? And that's what I'm offering.
Okay.
Did you have your hand raised or not? Or
Oh,
you're
you
just
don't
holding
mind
your
doing
hand?
what I have to say.
Jim was doing this, I guess. Okay.
Okay. All right, and let's go. Let's see, it's 2:30. We're gonna be here a little while. So. All right. Yeah. All right, the next item is number 33, is the foster care supplemental payment. Brought to us by Human Services.
Not brought up in the public hearing.
Or, I don't know anywhere else.
Can I say something?
Of course, you're esteemed member of this committee, sir. I know.
I appreciate very much the work that foster parents do. And I would rather spend what limited resources we have increasing their pay as opposed to a one-time bonus that they didn't ask for. It's a nice thank you gesture. It's sort of like a belated Christmas present. If you told me we're gonna put that money towards $15 a month per child extra or week or whatever it is, I'd be much more receptive because we need foster parents.
Right, and we need them badly. So I don't know if this gets to the part.
I
I'm not
think it
able.
solves the problem. I agree with you, Tim. This sort of came out of the blue, and it would be, it's a nice to have. I don't see this as the same urgency. I think that there's a structural problem with the foster care program, but that's what needs to be addressed, and this is not the way to go about doing it.
So can we not say no, or saying maybe the Senate or others can develop more?
We're not gonna put it in the budget.
We're not, no.
Or it could be a larger conversation with the fiscal year 24.
Exactly.
Their rate, I have no idea what they get for, I thought there was something proposed to go up, but I don't know if that's the right number either.
I do not disagree with you totally on that, so we can hold that one off for 24. All right, next one is another one of those. Equipment for schools for CPR training. They need equipment to actually do the program for $30,000. And it was recommended by healthcare.
And others, yeah.
Well, probably don't hear once again, I'm a substitute teacher. I'd like to have some equipment in that room.
So this won't be in the room. This is for training purposes.
This is for equipment, that they already have the training process, they just don't have the equipment.
But the equipment is for training, it's not to leave at the school.
Oh, yes,
They're not leaving this equipment.
they'll be using it as they go around the schools.
Yes.
Okay. Are we Somebody was telling me about, seeing that this has actually helped in a couple of situations in the schools. Or students have actually used this after they've gotten the training, they've had opportunities in real life.
I think of the big ticket items, this is, and that we've got support from the committee. So should we just, like, yes or no? Well, I'm good. I don't know.
Okay, good.
All right, that one feels, All right, commerce, now, line 35, this is the build to scale. I think there was pretty good support with this, with language from commerce and everybody else, that we do this, okay? Real good, not hearing any objections, check that one off. And now we come to the other big fence in the big yard. Agriculture, 9.2. I would say we put that in a,
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, we put it in a, no, what are you gonna say?
You raised your hands.
Yeah. That's like, he called timeout first, No, well, I was gonna say that we put that until the program has gotta be developed. Or the.
Yeah, okay, so I have no doubt that there are a lot of struggling farmers and organic farmers. They went through a tough transition. I have no, I wasn't convinced this morning, and I know I missed part of it, that $5 is a magical right answer. Given all the other money we're spending, I would propose a modest adjustment of changing it to $4, which takes 20% off this number. So whatever, I'm just being a Scrooge today.
Oh, you know, he doesn't, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the right number is.
Well, which is true, so it could be nothing.
That's what I asked him when you were doing it.
I think the right number was $9.
Yeah, $9. Why are they asking only
Gap is
5?
8 to 10 because
Because it would have been 21 million.
it would have been 21 million. And
And I was like, between,
it's clear, like, this may not save all of the farms that they hope to save at this level, or at a lower level. And it is clear that there's more work that needs to be done. This is a place where I don't know what fencing in means exactly, but I think this is where it's the signal of, that this is something that the House is interested in or not. And I hope we can say yes, and I hope we can say yes to the full request, but if we say yes to less, then we say yes to less.
so.
I feel bad I'm spending all the money.
Much like we have commerce coming back to us maybe on Tuesday with a friendly amendment on the rural. So we could, let's put that in the same category as this, is that I would like to hope that they will come back before we get to the floor with more parameters.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, it was a joint hearing. The Senate is certainly going to weigh in on this.
Yeah.
The administration will have a chance to work with the Senate. I don't think it will come back to us looking like this, but we've put on the table that there's a crisis and, a short-term crisis, as we understand it, in the organic dairy sector that is uniquely hitting them, and the grain prices and the Indian Compact and other things that are unique to the organic sector is why it's an organic program right now. And again, it may come back different. And I certainly I would be, on our behalf, happy to work with the Ag Committee next week to put more bumpers around what they are currently doing, so that by the time we take it to the floor, we have a little bit more of at least an intent to stand up a short-term program. And
yeah, so we're gonna have an amendment as long as.
So the committee voted unanimously in favor of this.
They did.
Just as a reminder too.
Our Ag Committee.
Our Ag Committee voted unanimously. Okay.
So.
And if I can.
Go ahead.
Back to you.
No, go ahead.
Our dairy industry, organic or conventional, is such a critical part of our, and we are constantly putting in support for conventional dairy, for supporting just business processes to enable farms to diversify. And we haven't ever had to worry about organic because the market was strong, the prices were good, the contracts were solid, and all the inputs were affordable. And this is a rare, as you mentioned, a unique situation that's kind of a perfect storm, so to speak, on this part of our agricultural working landscape. And I think it's as part of who we are and the importance of this part of our economy, let alone our brand and the businesses that are connected with this part of our working lands. I think it's absolutely essential that we support this line item.
Yeah, on the other hand, I can't help but think that this whole thing was rushed. I mean, I believe the public hearing was yesterday.
No, it was a joint.
Yes,
The joint hearing,
was
not
yesterday.
public hearing.
Yes.
Well, it was
It was public.
a joint
December,
public hearing,
yeah.
yeah. And it was yesterday, and I don't think all the questions have been answered. I mean, we didn't hear anything, or they didn't, from the conventional farmers. And we did hear that they're doing okay, but I still think they're operating at a slight loss. We heard different in here today. So I'm wondering, and I approach it like as a former business person, when I'm losing $10 and you're going to give me $5 to fix the problem, I'm still going to go out of business. I can't carry on that way forever. So that's the way I look at it.
So you're
I don't think they've changed.
21 million?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I knew that was coming. I opened myself up. But, that's the way I think it's a rush deal, and I don't know what the urgency is other than the possibility of losing a couple farms in the meantime.
So, yeah, so the possibility is to lose 25% of the organic dairy sector, which is not, that, if we think about it in those terms, it's actually a little bit more stark. And if there was a situation, where, and there has been actually in the past situations where conventional dairy was facing that, the dairy price, dairy margin coverage program that is largely not accessible to the organic sector has done something like what this proposal does for conventional dairy. It does not solve all the business model problems. It doesn't solve what happens when, as Lynn mentioned earlier, the Chinese market for protein powder suddenly dropped off the shelf and everybody had to right size the supply, and that hurt a lot of people. It doesn't solve those kinds of business model problems, but it addresses the fact that they can't get, most of them aren't eligible for the dairy or able to access that dairy margin coverage program, that the grain crisis from Ukraine is real. The climate crisis in California is short-term and hopefully, but is real and not out of their control. The fact that India is now closed to them for grain because of a change in how the U.S. Ag Department recognizes their organic standards is real. And there are structural solutions that are on the horizon. If there weren't, I honestly wouldn't either. As much as I care about the organic sector, I don't think I would be able to come in here personally and advocate for this money. But the change to the organic dairy rules will immediately shift the dynamics in the industry. They're looking at policy in the farm bill that's currently being negotiated that would also address a program capacity like the dairy margin coverage program for the organic sector. So it's, and I'm not going to ask you to raise this one to 21 million, and that's a triggering number. It's like, that sounds very familiar. But I think if we can take a House position here with this $9.2 million ask and continue to work on it, it will come before us again in some form or another before we have a final vote on the BAA.
it was my comfort level as well before having conversations about even approaching that subject to other members. That if there's not if it's not sustainable, I don't want to just, if it's only, you've got to come in here with some form, and that was where the rules, where you said it's a bridge to that next level, or to some sort of sustainability. Are you waving or?
No, I have a question. Okay. Have they received any other monies during the COVID period? Do we know?
Good question.
They would have.
I would imagine they'd be eligible for any other COVID programs.
Right.
But nonetheless, the rise in the very rapid rise in the cost structure of their business relative to the price that they can get, it's eating up whatever other supports they've had.
So we're just gonna.
So by supporting this now, what we're saying is let's keep this on the table for discussion and we can choose to put it something
That's,
in committee or something.
that's the way I see it.
Yeah, we don't have a flushed out total thing. We're just like, okay, we're not gonna let you guys go down the tubes. You guys have at least some semblance of something that's coming up that's going to make it better for you. You won't need this and after the rules. I just don't, I'm gonna look to call a friend over here, just to ask our friends, how would we structure that? If we wanted to put this, say, we don't know all of the information other than, there was a suggestion of $5 bonus per hundredweight based on 2022 average production to help them, Do we go that far? Or do we say this? I'm looking for a suggestion on how to put it in a neat place for us to say yes or no on.
So if you wanted to, maybe similar to what you're doing, or what we're proposing to do for some of the other language where we're maybe appropriating but reserving.
Yeah.
And then you would reserve it until there is a plan presented, that could be an option.
But could we say, like, in this particular one, the plan must be presented to Senate Ag by, or
Senate House Ag.
or the Senate House Ag? Because we're gonna need immediate, I have a sense, and I could be wrong, but this is a little more like they need it yesterday.
Right, and it's for 22, calendar year 22.
No, that's how they're using this to figure out the payment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the goal would be to get it out as quickly as possible, because when you're in a cash flow business and you don't have any cash flow, or you're in negative cash flow, time matters.
So if we have a plan by March 15th or something, this is gonna leave and be done by February 3rd in the House, and it's gonna go to the Senate. It'll be there the following week, which, I don't know, that gives them like 4 weeks to figure this out and create a plan. It seems like that should be enough time. It shouldn't be that hard to create a
We're just
plan.
not gonna do it like on the fly here.
But it would be a set aside of the money that will not be further appropriated until there's an acceptable plan, the House and the Senate.
Works for me.
Does that work
Does
for
that
you?
make sense? Yeah, we'll draft something on the fly.
All right, so I guess what we need to. Anybody else have questions on it, or are we ready to at least say we're gonna do that part?
Okay, what's the language you're asking me to put in?
All right. Sarah, could you? That's all right.
We're sidebarring on that language. What was the question?
Let's summarize what we're trying to do
Yeah.
with a plan.
Sure, so I think, similar to what we've done in a few other areas, we would, let's say, reserve the $9.2 million, subject to the
Finalized plan.
development,
Acceptable
finalizing
plan.
of a plan, accepting of a plan. I think we probably want to name, maybe House and Senate Appropriations, House and Senate Ag, the relevant committees. And maybe we put the date on it of March 15th. I think with the idea that if the plan would be provided in time that you could include an appropriation, maybe in the budget adjustment that it would eventually pass, right? So, this would get them moving. And would we would be asking for legislators to come up with a plan? Is that, I should have asked for that clarity. Or would we be asking the Agency of Agriculture?
And
Okay.
In conjunction with NOFA.
Consultation with.
consultation
Well,
with.
okay.
Because NOFA would have to be, right?
I don't know if NOFA has to be, they're the certifiers, but definitely with that.
With
The
industry.
organic, yeah, industry.
With industry, with
I
that,
thought the thing yesterday was with NOFA.
Well,
yeah, but they're one piece of it, right? You want
Yeah.
some,
Wouldn't you want the legislators and the agencies do it, and they can consult, they can take input that they decide?
So they're
that's,
gonna
we're
come
gonna,
back.
they'll
we're
come
gonna
back to us and then it will be a part of the BAA when it gets
yeah,
back.
so I wonder just if we can keep the language simpler,
Simpler.
that, you know, like in consultation with, you know, appropriate industry
Right.
partners or something,
And the
stakeholders.
Agency of
And
Agriculture.
then I can talk to the chair of ag, and see if they have any friendly offers for how to structure that after we get a draft.
And, yes, and what we'll probably do is take these parameters and we're working with Ledge Counsel, who will probably work with the appropriate lawyer.
Yep.
So,
And knowing that lawyer, he's probably already drafted it 6 months ago, because he seems to have psychic powers.
So just to clarify, the money would just be put aside, I mean, it's there as it is. And it wouldn't get spent until we approve a plan, probably in the Senate version of the BAA.
Yes,
And we'll have to come back.
it comes back to us.
Okay.
And I can say that I know that there is an intent in the Senate side to influence the process with a broader conversation. So the House may not have had time, but it's already beginning to be put into motion a plan to broaden that conversation. So I think we're gonna see both a good plan and also a much more robust stakeholder conversation around this come back to us.
This is where, okay, for those that are, this is where the straw vote, that we're like, okay, we like this idea. And on Monday, rarely, that's why I thought we could start early, because we're gonna read it. That we go off and read it, and then there'll be comment, because it's like covered what we thought it was, and, you know,
So much for early on Monday.
I know. Well, that was like, because if we started at noon, because it needed time, that was why I thought if we started early, we had lots of opportunities to hone home before the 4th.
I don't know.
But I know. But this will be important, if we agree with this, that'll be important to focus when we get the bill. Make sure it says this. Are we ready to decide? Oh, yeah.
Can we say that we support the concept, but if you can use more thought and send it on to the.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna, yeah.
If you don't like the plan, we never okay it.
Right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Are we okay with that? Looks good. All right. They're gonna be so busy this weekend, we're gonna burn up some paper. Well, we finished that. All right. So Sarah, I'm gonna assume that we go back up to the top. My hair, I get my hair cut tomorrow. Maybe I'll get a really cut.
maybe a different sheet. I had a big print right here.
So,
Okay, well, let's.
yeah, that's true.
What do you want us to look at, Sarah?
Well, we can use the top. I took them over. I just-
I'm just thinking, when I look at this, we want to do the rural capacity with a fence, right? Commerce and people are working on it. The refugee resettlement, I thought we kind of settled, that's the 350.
That was some language, and now we
approved the 350.
do we agree with the language?
I thought we agreed with the language.
I did too.
So we have language talking for rural capacity.
Right, that was where they promoted, in the old language, they promoted Prado Bill to the accountants. They had rub, right? Or they demoted,
Town.
or they looped Chittenden as a town.
but I'm looking for other fences. The other fences are the rural, inpatient.
But that we have language proposed, and that's gonna get slightly modified to not appropriate it to begin with, but to reserve it.
Right.
So language is coming there, or language revised. What's the OEO?
Which one are you on?
We're looking at 16, 17, 18, 19.
On line 19, yeah, 16, 17, 18, 19 on that.
19 is the continuation for the current year of the federal CARES Act, the federal funds.
16, 17.
Is this the 3 million that was in the governor's recommendation?
I think so, that's the.
Yes. It is?
Yep.
Your governor's request. That was the recovery request to get that 3 million. Are we good with that? Anybody not good with that?
Oh, are we on which one?
19.
On the 19 that's there, I'm just gonna go back to.
At the very bottom.
Yeah, we won't push it, let's go.
Oh, line 9.
Line 19.
Yeah.
We left that up. The federal CARES program is for the program. It's in the governor's recommend. Right.
We won't take a total, but if anybody needs to go to, take care of personal business.
Are we doing lines, are we doing the numbers for the lines up above?
I'm sorry, we
haven't done those yet.
Yeah, okay. Because I thought we started with line
We started with line 16. We did that little
16.
bottom.
Yeah, the ones at the top are just gonna
Are
get.
you doing the ones at the bottom there, 16 to 20 or whatever they are?
Yeah. I
Okay.
was looking for other fences.
So we have language coming for rural capacity. We have language okay for refugee resettlement. We have language slightly being revised for the youth patient in facility. And the 3 million was just the governor's recommend. So we don't need to do anything else except close that out if people are good.
I want to make sure I can find it.
It was on page 3, number 31 at the top.
There we go. There we go. I got a purple there next to it.
15, 17, 18, 19.
Million here. We weren't doing anything with that, and human services liked it.
That's the one you're.
And I suppose, yeah, it's on this list because it might have been impacted.
This will account for the federal money that comes out.
So Sarah, does it make sense to go through the spreadsheet or through the language that we have?
We still have some sections that I think we can close, but we should probably walk through together. I don't want to confuse you with another sheet because you have made some decisions and I don't have the ability to print you in a way that would be easy to understand, but you just close those one-time sections, but I have this sheet that throws the GovRec general fund and then the House position that may be helpful and we can go through and quickly. Yeah, we do.
Would that be?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna bring ladies and gentlemen, sit down.
Jen, can you tell us about that statement? It's all sitting in those chairs.
Do you know, I feel like I locked up my mouse and
Salaries,
I think it's already been budgeted.
yeah, do you know like there a button that I push?
So we.
The increase is not as much as they want.
Yeah. I did something, didn't I?
Yeah, let me get this. Just not exactly sure how to crack the code.
I know, right? Like
Usually it's a double tap.
I did something and that's, oh, no, and that's why I went back to my.
See on mine? I've got this little light. If I do it twice, but you don't have that there.
But I bet that's what I did somehow in here. Thank you.
Do you have a remote one?
But it's like attached to my docking station and a little.
I've got an extra really.
No, they're fine. I'll just take notes. That's why I didn't want to sit here.
Well, aren't you completely unfunctional without your cursor?
Well, that is a great point. I can kind of do, I can. Have I uploaded this? Oh, geez, Louise.
So that's.
If you just want to share that with me, just so I can make sure that. I do. Here, I'll do that right now. I should be able. My problem is I did something. That's like you were trying.
We also were trying to recommend that the minority population be able to take advantage of getting out of the hotel system. And then accidentally they ended up taking that as their position on the spending rather than on the priority to get it out. So it's just like they were not quite in the same.
But Jim, I do see that your $2.1 million savings.
21. Yeah, so, yeah, it was more like, yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a little.
So it looks like we highlighted the ones that we haven't closed on the web report.
I think so. And some of this money wasn't general fund, it was only general fund, so that's why there's some blanks here, because they're coming from other funds.
I'm gonna get my vitamins quick because I forgot to take them at lunch.
We're going to bring cookies we can share.
I know, we need something.
Sorry. I haven't grabbed snacks.
I haven't seen you eating a chocolate chip cookie.
That work?
It didn't. But thank you. I appreciate you trying to help me. First advice, which is I took my wireless mouse and.
I'm with you though.
It'll be good to be back at the.
And I'm gonna
Run up and get that cookie. I know. I think I'll take this out of it.
We used to have a
And then we have to pack.
coffee cart.
We could put that in. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and you could get snacks.
Oh, yes.
Did they stop doing that? Did you check it out?
Probably during the pandemic, it wasn't worth.
Yeah. So they haven't come back upstairs. I thought about that yesterday. That was.
Where was the coffee cart and how did I miss it?
I know.
In the lobby downstairs.
They like come by around 10 or
This is
something and they.
pre-pandemic.
Yeah, but I served pre-pandemic. I don't remember this at all.
But you wouldn't be over here that much in the morning.
Oh, here.
Here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying in the state house. I'm like, how did I miss this?
Oh, that's right. And
I've always thought that the food service should offer an espresso. Like an espresso machine drink.
That is from.
That's what.
Okay, now we're looking back on here.
We just all took a moment. So Sarah, if I was looking at this, and here's the same thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we won't have to go through this again once we go through this.
Correct. Yep. So this sheet goes section by section. It should tie to the web report. It has a column for the Gov Rec general fund position. So this sheet right here is just highlighting general fund. So it shows the aggregated, what the Gov Rec general fund position was for each of the appropriations. Then there's a column that has House Appropriations Committee general fund. The areas that are highlighted in yellow are what we have not yet closed. I printed this over the lunch hour, so all of the decisions that you just made are not on the paper version. They're on my laptop, but I figure we're gonna do all the decisions and then, we'll do our reconciling, making sure everything looks good. But I thought this would be a good way to kind of walk us through the remaining items to be made.
One or two minutes.
Where can she get it?
It should be posted. I just.
That's for when I make a boo-boo.
Yes, or Pat makes a boo-boo, then we have that first.
At 9. Okay, all right. Sarah, you're gonna just quickly walk us through and then maybe fill out the thing because you've got it on your computer? How could we help them go through this efficiently?
Yes, we'll walk through it quickly. And then I'm going to need time to print things out and not walk you through on the fly. But so why don't we, I think Representative Dickinson, it is online. If you go to today's, you've got it. Okay, great. So let's start with row 2, which is B209. That's a public safety state police appropriation. You'll notice that the House Appropriations General Fund position is a minus $201,000. That's related to the update that Representative Harrison presented to us yesterday. We received the update from the Department of Public Safety where they had too much of a general fund request and their governor recommend because of, I think, some assumptions about the Pay Act. So they were letting us know they needed less money. And so if you accept that, if we close that section, it actually drops some money, general fund to the bottom line.
The changes.
Yes.
Brings back 2.1 million.
That's right.
Nice job, Representative Harrison.
So do you want to close it? Okay. Then the next one that's open is section B301, which is the AHS Global Commitment Appropriation. I think we can close that because we've made the decisions for the items that'll roll into that. And so unless you have other concerns you wanted to address, I think we've made those decisions and this will all flow once we take it back.
Okay, so we can close it and a number will appear in the bill.
I think the same is true. So the next 3 yellow bars are all in DIVA. We had held them open, sections B307, 309, and 310, because we were finalizing some of the decisions about the rate adjustments.
I have a question on that. One of the things we made a decision on the Medicaid transit. Okay, so how do we explicitly express our intent that is what it's for, that we don't just change the line item?
Yeah.
And they don't.
So what we'll do in the web report for all of the decisions you made that go into those B sections on the web report, we're going to note, we're adding this much general fund, this much global commitment fund, and it's for Medicaid transportation. So we'll specifically state.
But will they?
Yes, because it'll be in the web report.
But they know what to do with it.
Yes.
And they get it and that. So they don't just say, oh, that's nice. Not.
Nope, the web report is the record that lets not only the legislature, but also the executive branch know what was the intent of the additions or reductions to funding.
I just want to make sure that we know that they know why they got it.
Yes, yep, it'll be explicit.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So I think we can close all the DIVA sections because we have made the decisions about the home health rate increase, the FUHC rate increase, and the Medicaid transportation.
So we drop down to the next yellow line.
I believe Representative Holcomb may have a question or a comment.
Okay. So line 15?
Line 15, oh, yep. It is
15 is that's where the 12,000 is gonna go?
Yep, that's right. And so I believe we can close that based on our decision.
So when you see it again, that's where the 12,000 will appear.
Yep.
What line is that again?
Line
is.
15.
Line 15.
1.5.
Yes.
So the next items, they're all, the big chunk of yellow are all DCF appropriations, which I think we had just not closed them.
Because we had so much activity.
Yeah, but I don't know if you want to walk through, I believe we have. I don't know if there's any further conversation that folks want to have.
Well, 318, is 318 the one about the secure residential facility, one of the items?
Yes, that is
And
right.
that's also in 327.
Why don't we go through one at a time? Does that, or?
Okay, yeah, good.
Okay, so B 316 is DCF, admin and support.
Would I, if I was being incredibly efficient, would I have next to me the human service Katie's language?
If you might want either Commissioner Aggression spreadsheet or the AHS ups and downs. It depends on what level of detail you want to go through in the highlights.
That's a high level general question about this. In the AHS and DCF arena, the MDWAF and they call it CCWIS.
CCWIS.
Yes, CCWIS, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And these are being funded in the Budget Adjustment Act, presumably out of carry forward savings. How do we handle that as a legislature? Do we ask for reporting back on these systems? I mean, how do we know that, I'm thinking about what we just heard from another agency about the viability of the big system. What kind of oversight or accountability is attached to systems that are?
So a couple of things. One, the Agency of Digital Services and all the rest of state government, there is some statutorily required reporting that happens for IT projects. And I was recently looking at the annual report for last year, and there is information in that report about the Medicaid data warehouse. And I believe the comprehensive child welfare information system is also in that report. So there's that. It's a report that they file annually. They're required to. In addition, JFO has an IT consultant that works with both ADS and then, the other parts of state government that may have active IT projects. And so we are able to direct her as appropriate to assess projects. And so our process typically is when there are funding requests, we do have her take a look. And it's not necessarily just at one point in time. It can extend for as long as needed on a project. And I think you also would have the option if you wanted to explicitly ask for some sort of update. I know for certain that the Medicaid data warehouse, there is also funding requests in the FY24 budget that the governor provided to us last Friday. And I'm just not sure about the comprehensive child welfare information system, if there are any new funding requests in the 24 budget. But if that answers your question.
I'll go look for those reports. And I just think it might help. I just wanted to make sure that the chair knew that this is one of the many, many lines on which one appears. And if people might see this and think that the other areas, they might think we're defunding one or not funding it. I mean, it's a transfer from the.
As long as you know what those lines are.
I'm comfortable with it, but I just wanted you to know.
And you're good?
I'm good.
All right, I'm trusting.
I just know people are looking at that one and it's confusing and I think they get all of it.
Do you have any other comments about the DCF admin appropriation, or you want?
I'm just gonna release some language there.
Do you want to close that section?
Are we good with B, 316. I'm getting thumbs up and no problems, okay?
Okay, B 317 is the Family Services Division.
The bulk of this is correcting certain errors that was resulting in double billing. And so this is repayment of Medicaid, basically, that should have been double billed. So this is a correction of money we're making it whole.
Yes.
Plus the inflation.
That too.
Are we okay?
Nothing else is outstanding. I'm Representative Holcomb, right, there's not.
No, not in this.
My mind is like thinking of where human services, we've pretty much encumbered everything that they've recommended.
I feel good about this, and I think we had good discussion about the private non-medical institution rate adjustment, which will be moving forward. So I think it was good to have that discussion.
Okay.
So I'm good on this one.
Great. The next section, yep, B318, child development. So as I believe one of you just referenced, the big, I think, change here is the movement of carry forward to other appropriations in CF.
I'd have to go back to my human services letter, but is anybody?
I think there are a couple issues here. I mean, one is there's significant amounts of money being pulled out of CDB. And their
response to this is a combination of vacancy savings and underutilization of services due to the pandemic. So they have this extra cash. I think the item that we need to discuss, which is, I think is on people's, I mean, some of this was transferred for reach out. It's the CIS technical corrections. The one that is worthy of discussion still is the
secure residence information. I think that's the one we kind of closed on.
That's further down.
But this is where the funding came from. It was pulled out of here and transferred over to fund it in a different department.
And yeah.
So it was.
That's the 4.6.
Yes, yeah.
All right, well, we're good at this point.
I'm good on this
Okay.
one. But if somebody asks me why we're putting 4.6 million, now you know why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but put back in and 327.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I'll note here is that House Human Services had some language related to Children's Integrated Services, which we'll review in the Katie language that you were, yes. We'll want to.
Yeah, that came up separately.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure
we're not skipping.
Yeah, I think we tried.
So the next appropriation in DCF with changes is the aid to aged, blind, and disabled. Again, this is a transfer of carry forward to the reach up appropriation.
Which line are you on?
I am on I'm on line 20.
It's 320.
And again, I think if you notice something, if there's a pattern to notice, I think what you need to notice is that significant amounts of carry forward were used to fund reach up. So that's indicative of under budgeting
in the reach up
category.
So we're on aid and aged, blind, and disabled.
But yes,
They can still transfer.
they can still transfer because they didn't use, this was available revenue, but
the point is we're funding an ongoing program with revenue from other departments.
Yeah.
The unused revenue. Not going to change that though, right?
We're not going to change it. No, we're not. This is good.
So the same for row 21, which is the general assistance appropriation. It's just the movement of carry forward this time to corrections.
So we made a decision, of course, that's going to be in the one-time dollars, is in one time. Okay. I'm good with that, right?
But again, it's for Department of Corrections, but it's coming out of general.
People will ask.
And you will have an answer.
I will have an answer. I'll be ready to have that.
All right, and then the next one is?
Row 22, which is reach up.
And that's caseload.
Yep, that's correct. Caseload pressures.
And that's not a problem. I'm not going to change.
But I had a note that we held it open because of the one request. Is that will go in there?
We are going to put the Lund in a one-time appropriation,
Okay, so it.
the B1100s. Yes, Yep.
These numbers we feel good on.
yep.
But again, just to call out, I just think it's helpful, there's significant caseload increases.
Oh, yeah. I've never known, as a matter of fact, this is the least caseload number. I mean, not this one, it was, GS was also in the $7 to $8 million every. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not that it's, but it's a significant.
Now,
Estimate that Jim keeps talking about.
Right.
we're on row 23, which is DCF, the Office of Economic Opportunity. Again, there's two pieces here. They're transferring some carry forward for the Medicaid data warehouse, and they're also transferring, kind of aligning where a grant is administered. So they're transferring some funds from this appropriation to reach up for the COTS grant.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I think the last one in DCF, which is section B 327, this is the secure residential treatment appropriation. So this is where you see the $4.6 million to,
Landing, yeah.
yep.
Okay, there was language in Katie's email or work that she did, which looks fine. Just to be aware, this is something that, according to the people in St. Albans town, they have decided that it needs to go to the normal planning and development process for any construction. And it probably isn't going to be done as quickly as I think that the BAA suggests, or people suggested from Human Services. There's a lot of questions and some details that need to be worked out. The normal permit process in the town, they have to treat everybody the same, and that includes this. So we talked about putting fences around it or doing something where we hold on to it in some other thing. It may or may not get through that process quickly or at all. And so I don't know that we want to be specific that that's going to be. We don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
There's no town or anything mentioned in the language.
No, there's no town mentioned, but the town does have a process for construction and things, and they want to go through the normal planning and permitting process. And they really want to have some public, there would be need for public hearings. There really has been no public awareness or anything of this. And this is something that needs to be done before they make a decision as to whether they're approving it or whatever. So I don't know how long that will take.
Yeah, I've got a question around, like, do we hold it in reserve? Or, because this is, until this March 31st, if you're looking at the language that was proposed or came to us, was on or before March 31st, 2023, the Department of Children and Families shall submit a report to the Health Committee's appropriation and the Human Services and Appropriations and the Health and Welfare, providing a detailed plan for the location, design, and budget of the proposed secure residential stabilization facility for youth, including and a time frame and a temporary facilities, and you can see that part yourself. So
yeah, Diane, Madam Chair, that calls for a report for a plan by March.
March 31st, yeah.
That's just the plan, and that's just a report on the plan. But the community needs to, or the town fathers need more detailed information, and there has to be time allowed in there for some normal public hearing and normal process to be getting permits. So that may not be ready by March 31st, but the plan may be in place. I would hope that there's something more specific to give everybody.
Right. But are we good with this? Sarah, do you have a comment?
I would just say, I think you can close the money and then we can finalize the language so that it's clear that the money is contingent upon the plan, those types of things. Yeah.
That's the important part, is that the money is contingent upon the plan. Okay.
And then the last one, we're good there, is row 30, which is Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living, long-term care, which this is actually where the home health rate adjustment is in the long-term care appropriation. And so we've made that decision so we can close this out now. Yeah.
And this is also, this dollar amount here under the governor's rec contained that.
This is that
The
VNA.
medical director grants, if you
Yeah, the
recall.
VNA.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And so I believe the rest of the yellows have already been closed. So I think you've made your money decision.
And all the house priorities, all the things you just went through.
That's right. Yep.
Yep.
And you have all those numbers, so.
Yep, I do.
Good.
So what do we need to do next would be all the language?
Yep, all the language I think you need to do next. And then, you know, in the background, what I can, I've got this updated. Maybe you can take home over the weekend a sheet, understanding that we will still be reconciling. Things may shift a little bit, but if that's helpful.
That would be great.
I'm available, and there might be some quick phone calls with us too before they. All right, so is there anything we need to go through on the language?
Yeah.
I think so. Should I walk us through it?
Because I think Maria's sheet from this morning, because
We've got this.
We go through this.
See what we've got, plus we've got the added stuff. So she
No,
gave
we
us,
won't have the
she
actual,
gave us
we know that we.
this added. This added from that we walked through this morning. Those are the add-ons. Tie into these. I'm feeling like I wanna do that, just to quickly go through, like, this.
The one that has the cutoff edges that we got, and then, you know what I'm talking about?
And then this, Maria helped us with, this is the new language that would come into here. Is there anything that's in here? All right, here she comes.
Okay, so one thing, I think that you wanted to make some final decisions on the Brown Street language. You know, you had talked about the 10% admin cap, but then there were a couple of other things.
Oh, yep.
So,
Versus site versus,
yeah, that, exactly.
You're retaining all of the information.
You did say site versus parcel, so I don't want to give him too much credit. He's really, I want him to get an ego.
Oh, okay.
unlikely.
I think we've got some stuff hanging out there that make me feel like we're I just, yeah, we're pretty close. So maybe I know, I got the right.
Did you want to start with the brownfield or what do you want to?
We start at the beginning.
Oh, beginning, okay.
Let me send a note.
Yeah,
Right,
right, the thing with the corner that was cut off.
Oh,
That's
that
what we
part.
all have.
Your language, you just
Yes.
draft.
Okay, fine, yeah, it's
Can
this,
we start there and then add these, you can.
yeah, I have,
Where we need to.
yep, that sounds like a good plan. Okay. All right, so
When is the date of this one? You're using,
I'm using the very first one. The only difference is that the newer one has numbers, section numbers on it. Yeah, but I think both of them will work. I mean, but here we go. Yeah, here it goes.
mine miraculously was not cut on it.
I didn't know what you meant by cut.
It is something. Everybody else says, oh, yeah.
You know what it is,
Right.
yeah. I thought it was like, oh, that's cute, I've never seen that before.
Okay, so 11123, is that what we're looking at? Okay, perfect. Good.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It's all my work, like, you know, the approving body. So Maria, the first one we're waiting for Commerce, and now we have the language, or we will have the language, so.
Okay.
So we can close that one out.
Does that come out?
Section 1.
Section 1, number 24, the rural infrastructure.
Yep, I was just gonna, I just told Aaron to tell Chief that we might go over, but just because they close up at 4:30, and then we're not available to the public, so he has to be just notified. Yeah, what, you asked, what did we do? What did we do?
So, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So you're talking, the vice chair just closed the $3 million for the Rural Infrastructure Assistance Program because there's some language from the Commerce Committee that's been worked on.
We don't have the language.
Not yet, but it's,
But we're gonna fence, this is gonna
Yes.
fence in the 3 million.
yes, fence.
Reserved for the purpose, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So until Commerce, with a revised scheme, system, whatever, the money is, it's conditionally appropriated.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
available
And
until they
it
do
may,
that.
it may show up in our budget adjustment documents that we get on Monday without Commerce's language.
Right.
And we still may approve it because we know there will be an amendment that either will come from our committee or from Commerce to fix that.
And
So
if,
we've all agreed on that being the process.
and I don't even want to throw, but if nothing ever comes, we'd have to make an amendment to take it out.
Okay,
Good point.
Hold that space.
okay.
Just remember that if they don't come with a plan, it's just gonna sit there.
Okay,
Yeah, right?
yeah,
They will.
We need a plan. Okay, so I'm just gonna write down there.
Yeah.
No plan, no lunch.
okay.
So, go ahead. You keep
So
walking us
the
through.
next one that I had open was number 30. We closed the others. Number 30. I think we closed that when you were away. We're on page 2, the number 30, so section 1. No, we're going in order. And that was we were waiting for language from healthcare, which we have now.
Yeah, right. So does that ties in with you, Maria?
Yep,
Okay. So should we go and look at the healthcare language? Nope. No, we got it, but we've never approved any of it.
We were gonna change it.
So,
so this is another one of the fenced, this 9.225.
that's the
Right.
9.225, right, so we're going to fence that.
Yes, fence.
And we had language that came to us from healthcare, but we weren't all bought in on that one.
Okay.
We gave it, right? Is it in here?
No, that's
That's human services.
So,
We just don't want it to say that it's automatically appropriated to the Department of Mental Health.
Right.
We were just gonna reserve it, and the rest of the language was fine, but they weren't getting the money.
Language.
We did, but we're modifying it further because
Right.
they appropriated it to the Department of Mental Health, and we don't want to appropriate it to the Department of Mental Health
Right.
until we have the rest of the
Yes.
language.
So I'll just sort to if we went to the letter from healthcare, the South spreadsheet, the chart. There was the chart that they brought language, but that language is not.
It's almost right.
It's almost right, and we never approved any of it, so Maria, can you dial us in?
okay, so in the memo, which is on page, the healthcare memo, on page 6 of 7, towards the bottom, this language that needs to be tweaked a little bit. It's the 9.225 DMH to increase the youth inpatient beds. Okay, so to this language, what you wanted to do was add some language that fences this and doesn't make it available until there's a plan. And so I believe that we are having the Legislative Council work on that particular piece. And so that is being, yeah, I just saw an email about it. So that is being worked on, and you can see it on Monday when you come in
Okay.
to review
Let's
it.
say something like the 9.225 million to be held until the Department of Mental Health presents a plan to increase the number of psychiatric youth inpatient beds in the state. These funds shall be used for the construction of the psychiatric youth inpatient facility. Take out the no reference to the Southwest, and then the rest could be the same.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
I like it. That's actually quite, yeah.
So our goal is the money's going to be held until they come back with a plan for psychiatric youth inpatient beds, regardless of where it is in the state. So we don't.
So it'll be a shorter language than what we had here.
And then all the rest of this could be the same, right? No, we have to take out the southern.
Well, if you want to take it to southern, it's
Yes.
short.
Yeah,
I think
that-
Marie's got it.
You got it? And we're good,
Yeah.
we're good with that? Thumbs up, everybody? Okay, that's what because we talked about it, but we didn't say yes.
Okay.
So the logic of that was also that if people know that there's no tree behind it,
Yes.
you might bring it in and then mindful of that. Was
Right, and there's other places.
Right. It's perfect.
Yep. So then, on that, when we get it back, I'm gonna note, see new language on my notes, so then we get the hard copy when I compare them, okay? All right, go ahead, ma'am.
So the next one that we had tentatively left open was that there was 10.5 million left for reappropriation and general fund balances. And that Ways and Means asked about using some of that money for VITA, the voluntary income tax.
Where are you?
So we did some digging, thank you, Maria, it was helpful, and then we talked to people. And what we actually did last year was we did have 400,000, but it actually was in the treasurer's office, so we found a way to do it. That contract runs until September of 2023. So what I have done is gotten back to the person who's in that, does that work, said, it became clear that it was gonna get way too complicated trying to do something for part of this year and have a grant that goes till September, and then they wouldn't be able to use it. So we'll look at it in the FY24 budget. So we'll leave the appropriation the way it is. We will not give any additional to them and let them know.
And that's because you jumped all the way, yeah, so we're
Which
good
one are you
with
with? Everything else
page
is
1, page 2, page 3 is done, page 4 was okay. Page 5, which is section 4, is that where Representative Shuck said that there was a question, which she just pointed out, right?
That was right at the end of it.
It's right at the end. It's right.
And then section 5,
We will go ed fund, section for corrections.
Yeah.
And then we get to section 7,
right, which is gonna change.
that's the rural infrastructure assistance program language, which is what's gonna change.
So I'm gonna put a purple line through that and put a note to commerce coming with amendment or language, right? Well,
The language from commerce.
Yeah. Okay.
So do we leave it as is, knowing that we're going to amend it, or do we just pull it out?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Because I think, yeah, we just take it
Okay,
out.
so we'll take it out until we get something from Commerce. Okay, good.
And what are we doing with the money?
The money's reserved.
Reserved for that.
Reserved for the purpose, but not.
Right. So the only thing that would be there, let me walk it through, right? You should see the spot that says $3 million will be reserved for the purpose of the development of the rural infrastructure assistance program. And then hopefully it'll be a floor amendment, because if they don't come back till Tuesday, Wednesday, then it's
Yeah,
just
no, I'm
sitting there.
just wondering, do you
Yeah.
need a placeholder, otherwise
Yes.
the numbers?
We need a placeholder there for that, the placeholder, right, Maria? Or-
Yeah, it's, so the placeholder, the money is on the first page of this bill, section B 1100, number 24. That's where the 3 million To Secretary of Administration, so you could
Say it there.
say it there, or
Or we could do something here.
Well, can you say section, I'm just, no.
No, you're right.
I guess.
This is why it's real important.
Section 52 on the end, that would go back to E 100.4. That's all I'm asking.
so the money in B 1100, that's where the money lives, and then this other section 7 is describing like how the money is going to be
It's
used.
the program design.
Yeah, the program
And
design.
I see you, Lynn.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. I talked to some people in the administration and they clarified, this is not for the money that the towns receive. That they sense a sense of confusion that we're talking about the money that the towns received from the ARPA money. This is for the programs that the state agencies actually were trying to get out into the communities. And that's what this assistance is for. It's to help with the actual.
Beyond just what they got in that.
Yes, this from the state matter, whatever the different.
Yeah.
I was confused with that too.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So Maria, do you think we should leave a sentence in here for a placeholder in E 100.4?
Sure, we can put something in there.
We'll just take a breath.
Money will be held until program design is finalized and approved or something?
Sure, yeah, that'll give us a heads up where,
Right.
okay.
I think that answers Jim's
Yeah,
question.
and then does it change up here in the front, 3 names to the secretary to implement the new law and
Yeah.
system and create it? And
Right.
Yeah, all right, yep, we gotta tag it up.
Okay.
Good. All right, then we'll let Maria.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
All right, and 8, we're good.
And then
9, we're good.
section 10,
And it's the next
there's
big
new
one.
language from Commerce.
10.
They gave us language.
Representative Holcomb, go ahead.
When you raised the concern
About this language,
did we ever address it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, in fact, Mike, the Representative Marcotte had the same concern about poor.
Low income, yeah.
also find that everybody is also important.
Because Chittenden and Rutland and Bennington is all.
Well, I thought it was Jim's Town they were specifically calling out.
It was wrong with the book.
Once again, we're arm wrestling.
So if you're following at home, this language we replaced with the language recommended that came in the Commerce letter, right? Remember they had, okay, I'm gonna cross this and I'm gonna say Commerce letter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And section 11, we were good on. 12, we were good. 13, we're good. 14, Esther, we got. 15, we're good. Okay, 16. And
15.
Do you have anything more from
that's the big hole.
Okay.
This is,
Surely a letter's coming.
What's it gonna say?
Representative Squirrel, Representative Dolan, and Representative, I'm not too sure, I think, who was, we were communicating between the two committees.
I think
The latest news is the Committee on Environment and Energy is sending a letter as we speak. That's what
Friday,
the,
4:45. It better be in there.
has
Yeah.
Aaron gotten it?
Aaron, you have a letter from Amy Shelton?
From Amy or
For those of you
Gabrielle?
that don't know what we're talking about, as they go find it, this is the section for the economic development, the brownfield. And we still had outstanding the question of the cap or not a cap, the 200,000 or 500,000, parcel or site.
Or 5% or 10%.
I think we agreed on the
We did
10%.
10%.
Yeah.
We're saying
already got that
10%.
We're good on the 10% and we said, okay, it's just the other, that energy and technology.
Energy
and
environment.
Energy and environment.
That's the only one you have.
So,
Did you hear that?
Carrie, did you think there was another one coming? from
Yeah,
them?
they told me it's sent, they're sending it now.
Okay.
Okay.
So it hasn't come yet.
I'm gonna hold my hand right on that page, we'll hold it. 17, we were good, 18, we were good. 19, we were good, 20, we were all pretty technical, 21, 22. And there we are, 23.
23.
We also did healthcare.
Yeah.
So, and we come back to section 16. I've got commerce has rewrite and healthcare.
And healthcare, I think, agreed with commerce is,
Healthcare agreed with commerce.
if I remember correctly. I think that they ended up with
We're going back.
Oh, okay, yep, in the commerce letter, there was language.
What's left in it? Single American nursery.
No preceptors, yeah.
Is that this here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. And we said it, yeah, healthcare okayed it and commerce okayed it.
It's a commerce letter.
Replace
Did
section
you find
12.
it, Lynn?
Yeah, starts on page 3 of the commerce letter, section.
Yeah, section 3.
So we have to decide if we want to replace section 23 in the bill as proposed by the governor with this section 23 proposed by and okayed by both commerce and healthcare. Take a moment, remember, look at your notes. I was like, oh, 40 months ago.
Are you suggesting replacing all the language that's in the governor's rec with this?
Well, let me ask.
Or is
you
it
this question.
start?
I believe that, I think I'm wrong. Didn't commerce say, or was it healthcare, that this was to be added at
Yeah,
the end?
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yes, not a replacement of, but to add this to the end. I was going, okay. Thank you, committee.
So some of this, if you look at the language that's in the governor's rec, so it starts out, you've got A1, program established, then you've got 2, and then you flip the page and you F, and then you get down to 1, and that's the incentive grants to nurses employed by healthcare employers in Vermont. It looks like this language is where they start, the governor's language talks about nurse preceptor. I'm just hoping that we don't duplicate any of it, because this, like, after the 1, there's 2, and if nurse preceptor is receiving compensation pursuant.
Well, don't seem to have any problem with the governor's recommended.
Okay, so we'll just add this to the end.
Nope, maybe
Yeah,
we
well,
don't.
no, I think you might be right. It looks like 1 and 2 in the commerce letter is a rewrite of 1 and 2. It's in the governor's recommendation.
That's what it looks like to me.
And what it's doing is it's making it a little bit more specific.
Well, just section 23, we wouldn't accept.
That was section
We're accepting the
32.
rewrite here. This part, that was a part of that section 10. but section 23, that's over there at the top.
That's the one we're looking at.
Yeah.
Some
Supports the proposal in addition to the committee recommends allowing the proposal to award funds.
There's two critical sections.
Yeah, 2 is definitely a rewrite.
But so if in our yellow copy one, it says action resolves section 72 is amended to read. And in the one that we got from Commerce, it says section 21 is amended to read.
And you add, they want to add this new.
Right, so it shouldn't be overlapping with what's in section 72.
It just ties on at the end of it.
Okay.
No, no.
It does up here. Up here it says the section.
Right.
But if you look at 2, it's paragraph number 2 in the governor's recommendation is almost identical word for word of paragraph 2 here, only they have many changes and their underlining is wrong. So someone has to sit down and actually try to.
I think we just, there's not much here that is confusing in terms of our role.
Yeah.
There is for Commerce and it's a drafting question. And
Yeah.
in the underlying bill, there's a lot of duplicative language and it gets really confusing and we've been down this rabbit hole before.
Okay.
And I think we don't group solve it. I think we ask.
Okay, so we'll,
So what I'd like you to do is take a look at, right now, I think the committee agreed with the governor's recommend and adding the commerces to the bottom.
Or accepting the Commerce Committee's edits.
Edits.
And I think, and then we reconcile the two. I don't think they're unfriendly to the
And then
administration
we
in
let
any
you
way.
guys.
I recognize it,
Figure
yes.
that out.
Okay,
I
yes.
believe that the
Maria can
administration's filed everything.
Right. And that was my bad on the getting you confused and thinking.
I have some notes on number 2 for Commerce, something about adding $5.
That's
In the comments.
That's also in the governor's recommend that same language. It has to do with giving an extra precept rate per hour for a preceptor. It's an incentive to be a preceptor for nursing
But
students.
that's current law. It's not, it's the next page is underlined is what they want to add.
That's funny, it is in the redraft.
You know, I think what I'm going to do, if it's okay with the committee, is I'm going to talk to the drafts person from the Legislative Council, and we're going to sort this out.
Okay.
And then we'll give you what
You
the,
guys can figure it out.
we'll figure it out. We'll get it sorted.
All right. And then section 24, we were good. 25, we were good. 26, we were good.
Madam Chair, we could go back to, we just heard from the House Committee on Environment and Energy and they updated their letter.
On brownfields.
On brownfields. So this is section 16. Yes.
And that came to whom?
It came to Maria, I believe, but I forwarded it on to Aaron.
Okay, so Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay, it's posted.
Great. They support the 1 million for the RPCs. They support the existing notwithstanding language saying that the committees want to ensure that these funds are awarded to multiple projects. Testimony was taken that these funds will be awarded to different projects. Therefore, the committee is recommending to retain the current notwithstanding language in the BAA and discuss the cap further in this session. And the next bullet was saying in regards to the parcel versus site language regarding the definition, they're recommending this be clarified during the legislative session, but not recommending to make a change. And then with the 5% allocation for administration, both committees recommend raising it to 10%.
All right, so we won't make any changes other than the 10%.
Okay,
That's
good.
language except for the 10%.
Yes.
Clarified. Did you say, it's their intent to leave the 200,000 cap or?
The notwithstanding lifts the cap,
Lift the cap.
lifts the existing cap.
Accepting the governor's language as
Accepting the
proposed,
governor's
except for the 5% to 10%.
And that's good. All right, we can close that now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We thought that would be the, how did you take it?
All right, I'm sorry, that's not very professional.
It is 4 o'clock on the Friday.
All right, 27, 28.
I got a commerce.
Item
Hold on.
2, wealth calculation, Tristan.
I'm catching up. No, I think that they were fine with that in that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find letter.
But
It's a posting,
No, so there was another question that I was interested in, but I believe that they said in that letter that this was fine. Oh, is that what you're saying?
letter, page the, 1, 2, 3, 4, page 2. High priority, the committee supports the proposal. Amend the language.
Oh, they changed the, I think they added an extra year. They
They've
added
got a
2022.
notwithstanding.
So take that effect July 1st, 2022, and apply retroactively to applications received on or after that date.
That was the top of page 5.
Yep.
And that's what Congress was going to add.
Yes. And that was the effective date of the
Oh,
program.
that's right, it aligns with current practice, amends backdate of bill, JFC recommended.
Right, sort of parallel construction to fix the date.
Yeah. So it's more technical in nature, but it's not substantive.
So, we're good for that?
So take the
just
commerce
gonna go
language.
Add,
Yeah.
add
Commerce language.
commerce. Plus. Okay.
Bills.
29, we were good, 30, we have to replace from the ways and means language that was replaced. 31 is good, 32 is good, 33 is good, 34 is good. And then that's that, and then we kind of tag this up. I just want to go to human services one, I just want to look at it. Maria, do we need to do anything?
Services, okay.
Oh, maybe those were just the $2 million for equipping funding to family services for the purpose of hiring, retaining, coordinating. Do we need that language?
what I ran this, that I heard is you did hear from DCF. That we were worried that,
Elizabeth?
oh, never mind.
Did you say human services or?
This is human
Katie
services.
McGlynn had a 2-page,
5.
I give it 5 pieces of language.
The one that was handed out earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we ran through this one, we knew that we had.
No, it is the piece of paper that was handed out. That's all I just wanted to make.
Yes. And we were getting rid of section D.
Well, let's just stay with A for a minute.
Okay.
What do we need to decide?
And maybe we can confirm with Ledge Council, because with A, since those appropriation changes for those employees are going to be in the B section, they'll be called out in the web report and it'll say it's for those purposes.
Okay.
And so we'll use, I think, the language in that way, but we'll confirm.
And they were okay with it.
Yeah. So it may just be in the web report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that true with all of them or just that one?
Well, we're gonna go to B. And B, the same thing with the second with Katie. Which is the children's integrated services per member per month. And I think they wanted it to be clear. Providers of children's integrated services shall receive a per member per month payment of $6.50 for all eligible.
I think because they're funding the per member per month and DCF's carry forward, it's actually not in the ups and downs for their budget. I think we need to read this language.
Yeah.
Because it's explicit.
It's up and they wanted to make sure that they.
That they did it.
continued
Yep.
running. So they looked at this and they approved that.
Okay, are we good with that?
Yes.
That's like Wakefield. Okay. All right, so that'll be in the bill.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure we don't forget something. At the bottom of the commerce page, that is section 4, that, what do you call it, the build to scale proposal?
Yeah.
Wording, do we need to add that in there?
I think you already approved that.
Did we?
Yeah, I have that as something that you already,
Off sections and I didn't.
yeah,
Okay.
We approved the dollars.
yeah.
And I know we approved the dollars, but they had language to go with the dollars.
Yeah, they did. Okay, I thought you had approved the language too, but.
Yeah. You said it was the same as last year's BAA, probably a different dollar amount, but the same.
I don't know.
Yeah, so do you see the language on page 5 of 5 in the Commerce?
Yes.
Okay, do you approve that?
Yeah.
Okay, great, good.
Yes. That's why we go fast and slow. All right, I just wanted to go through the human services. C is, we talked about that already, right? Okay. And
That's good
D,
language.
and I've got notes on D and E as, or D, no language required. Looking at
Yeah,
me.
I think that this can just be in the web report. I think that, I don't think we need that. And then the same goes for the substance use disorder specialist. But there was one thing in the memo that I just don't have checked off, and that was a student loan repayment assistance. There was some language in their memo.
Yeah, and
In services. It's one of, student loan repayment assistance. It's on the top, it's 3 of 7. It's on the page 3 of 7.
Yep. Student loan repayment, yep. 2.7 million, 256,000 only spent to date. This language changes and allows DCF more flexibility. Remember, they moved from the, when you looked at it, right, 50,000 to 60,000. Regardless of how long, they took out the human services, took out the within the preceding 5 years.
And then they added.
Put in here last year.
Building funds with broadens eligibility, is what you said.
So, I don't recall from memory, and this is out loud. The language here was put in last year, only 256,000 of it was spent. They had 2.7 million. So Human Services is making some recommendations to the program so that they can get it out the door. I have that right? I'm getting it right. So, are we okay with that?
Okay, and we already talked about
Else
this.
on Human Services letter, while we've got it. Maybe we call the governor, we got 13 million that we talked about. The bonuses got to be.
I think you've, yeah, I think you have.
Integrated services is the good one that goes to the 650. For the language that we just said we do. The 4.6, we put in the state of reserve, frozen automation. No, foster care, we decided, right, we can't discuss. Do we have language for the adult days?
Okay, so that, I'm glad, the 2.1 million?
We put 2.1.
Okay, so I'm really glad you brought that up, and I'm going here to get my book, my budget.
We had a, yeah.
Because we did have a couple of sentences that I know were approved. However, I wanted to point out that in the underlying bill, as passed, there's a B1100 sub 18 added $1.5 million to Dale, and for the same purpose, for infrastructure. You see that? It's right
I see,
there.
yeah.
And so one approach to adding an additional 2.1 is to just change the number and have the other things be the same, unless you didn't want to do that. You wanted to
separate appropriation.
I'm not as familiar deep with this one. I know that Human Services said okay to put language.
Okay, so, no, I do know that, I did see that, and I agree that is fine, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, well,
We'll just, yeah,
this was more thorough, so
Yeah, more
you
thorough.
aren't, we just seeing this, but it's, for grants to adult day service to support operating costs and program infrastructure, allocated on an equitable basis for a methodology that Dale develops. They've got quarterly payments and provide a spreadsheet to the department detailing the expenditures. That was what was in.
yeah, that was what was in, that's why it.
And maybe we do,
I thought.
they say like, this, anyways, we want to do the same thing that they did.
But we are gonna do for the startup of a new adult day center.
Yeah, there's some of that might not
So
apply for
maybe,
this year.
maybe what we'll, it's the same, we're adjusting, so this is the 23 bill, right?
Right.
So, no, we can do a separate appropriation of the 2.1 with the language that the committee approved.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if that's fine.
But it's not gonna be quarterly.
No, that's right.
No, it'll be just,
To the end of 23.
We get a report at the end of 23.
yes, that's right,
Yeah.
simple, I think it's 2 sentences.
Right.
And that sounds good.
Okay, fine,
So
good.
we all agree that we already agreed that we're gonna put the
Yeah.
money in now. We're
Good.
gonna let JFO and drafters hash out the appropriate way to say this.
Do we need to add any carry forward language like we have in here in case?
For, if they don't spend.
But if it's not spent,
It's gonna be granted out, God.
Okay, okay, we just add it in here.
that's right.
No, yeah, that was all gone.
Yeah, okay.
So they're asking for another, because we did 2.1 the time before and 2.1 the time before. Okay. Yeah. What we might want at the end, stop thinking, Di,
Okay,
is because this is the end of the road
yes.
of that, and that they're at 40%. They believe they're gonna be able to get to 60%. So what we need for them to say is, or we should say, is that this is the last opportunity for you to get to a bridge to where you're gonna be.
Okay.
That's in your mind. Right? Because they're at, I think they're at 40% now. Much like the dairy compact, it's like, show me that you're gonna get there from here, because this is gonna be a never-ending hole. Okay.
So I think what you've asked them to do is give you a report, right? But you want to state,
Sustainability,
yeah,
what is their sustainability after this, after you go out?
okay. Okay,
Okay. This is what I do when I'm all alone, too. We went through this.
okay.
So the other language is the language about the excise tax for ways and means. And I don't remember if that was on your sheet.
That's on the map, that's on the
Maybe.
Yeah, and I believe that you've already accepted
I
that.
just want to be sure it's captured somewhere.
Yeah, I have it on my very marked up sheet that we,
Okay.
Because let me see where ways and means are here. The section 30 downtown that we had accepted.
Oh, yeah, and cannabis, yeah, it's there.
Accepted.
Okay, fine. It's all there. Thank you.
yeah.
You got it, yeah.
I don't want to.
No. This is how things get, and then people are like, I just can't understand why they have to go amend, or amend. Is that it?
That's what I have. That's, I think, yeah.
Great. So, Sarah, do you have everything? Every decision we've made? So, yeah, sounds like Maria thinks the same way.
Yeah, and we're going to be here working on this, not tonight, but over the weekend. And you know what? We will communicate if we have issues. Yes.
So check your emails.
Yes.
Answer your phones.
Yeah, and we do communicate. I mean, it's not an idle threat. We do it. For sure. So, yeah.
Yes, we do. Are we ready for a straw vote on the package? You see anything prior to on Monday.
So you're asking for,
You don't need a book.
no, but you're asking for a kind of like, are we good with the whole?
Yes.
Do you have a discussion?
We'll have a deeper one on Monday too, where you can have a discussion.
So I'm just saying, I'm not ready to sign on because we got the hotel voucher to continue as is, so that's where I'm at.
That's when you are at the moment?
Yeah.
All right, well,
Are you looking for a straw vote now on the?
On the big
big.
thing, so that when we come back on Monday, that they can put it together. Right.
I mean, they're gonna put it together anyhow.
right, so just sort of how are people generally feeling, so you're sharing.
Right, I just, yeah. So, do that, Lauren. So can we get a vote on a straw vote? Sure.
In general,
Just a general thumbs up that, you know, and if you've got other issues, you know,
Yeah.
we'll continue to hash them out on Monday.
Is that the main sticking point from your perspective?
For me, I'm only speaking for me.
That's fine, I'm not speaking to you, I'm not asking you to speak for me.
You put me out of my comfort zone and I supported a number of different
Yes,
initiatives.
you did.
But, you know, there becomes a limit and that's
That you
where I
hit your
am,
limit.
that's all.
Okay,
Does that mean all of you will be a no?
is that your?
Well, I had a couple, so I had one more than he did.
Oh, what was your other?
Are you still, yeah,
The ag piece.
Yeah,
yeah, please, okay. Anybody else?
I'll be fine with it.
okay. And Lynn, any other thoughts you have?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to the people in the town, find out what's going on and clarify it. So I'm gonna hopefully be in person with them. And we've had requests from Human Services people to go and talk to the delegation. There's a whole stuff going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I do have a couple other things that I'm not, you know, but I think most of it's okay, but I do have questions.
Okay, Pat, it's the 21 and the 9. Okay. Okay. All right, and then if I missed anything, it's not by intent, it's by accident.
Wow.
And after 4.
Hey, we worked hard this week.
Wow. All right.